Hey, welcome everybody. I'm going to call this work session to order. Today is Monday, March 20th, and the time is 5:30. If we can have our update from our lobbyists starting off.
Good evening, everyone. Let me see if I can get to, we're all at the Capitol yet. They're in the middle of a lot of late night working sessions, and I'm over here at the Colorado Joint Budget Committee. So I just want to give you a brief update on a couple of things that we are working on your behalf. First of all, we will attend our first Colorado Municipal League meeting on Wednesday at noon on your behalf to see what Colorado Municipal League has prioritized. A couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. The mayor asked us to get in touch with David Kinney. David Kinney and his group represent Evraz and wanted me to get in touch with them regarding the ozone legislation, which has not been introduced at this point yet, but wanted to see if we could coordinate as your new lobbyist in whatever efforts they make to discuss with the legislature the impacts of that bill on Pueblo. And I just wanted to let you know that we did that. The point person for David Kinney and Evraz is Aaron Hackett. At this point, they're contemplating doing a day at the Capitol, which we would also coordinate with City Council and the Mayor's office for those of you that can attend to come up to Denver to the Capitol, and Capital Success Group would arrange meetings with members of leadership, including the Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, and then our own Pueblo delegation. That particular day at the Capitol is right now being organized. It would involve other manufacturers besides Evraz, but it would probably be the focal point for really organizing our advocacy on your behalf, as I said, and we would do our best if for those that would be able to make it up from City Council to attend, we would try to make it as a productive a day as possible. And as I said, there would be other manufacturers in addition to Evraz that would be there at the day to participate in that advocacy. As I said, we still haven't seen a draft of the bill. We've only seen the talking points, but we know that it's potentially going to be coming in the next week or two. The thing that will probably delay it right now is that they're about to do the budget presentation in the Senate next week. And so that week will be consumed by, the budget committee presenting the 23-24 budget. After they finish in the Senate, then the House will get it. And they'll do the same before then that the budget goes to the governor. So we think because of those 2 weeks being pretty occupied with both the House and the Senate, we probably won't see that bill probably for the next couple of weeks. But that's when they're hoping to organize this day at the Capitol with manufacturers, and we'll keep you advised on that particular event. The other thing that we wanted to bring to your attention in terms of the bills that we've given you, there's a bill that's coming up that the Colorado Municipal League has taken a position of opposition to. It's the the charging stations bill. This bill will take power away from municipal government in order, how they assess property tax and how they charge for those charging stations. So if you get a chance to take a look at that bill and you want to take a position on that bill, let us know. We are monitoring that bill on your behalf. So that's kind of our look at this week at the Capitol, and happy to take any questions. Then, because I'm at the Capitol, I'm not sure whether Ryan or Alec are on the call, but if they have anything else to add before I open it up to questions.
Yeah, I would just add that House Bill 1169 limit arrests for low-level offenses, which some of the council members, including President Graham, has asked us to keep an eye on. That bill is scheduled for tomorrow at 1:30. And it's the second bill up, so I could testify. If anyone else would like to testify, I can get those instructions to you.
Thank you. Is there any questions for any of the Mr. Romero's? Counselor Flores?
Gil, this is Dennis. Regarding the Alvarez ozone bill, it's really hard to react to that. I mean, have you seen any kind of draft, any kind of outline, anything about where they're headed with this?
Councilman Flores, we've seen some talking points. We'll get those to you. They're not very precise in terms of really giving you a direction. I mean, there's enough in there that it should, concern manufacturers in Pueblo, including Everest. And that's why the Kenny Group is really going to try to put some focus. And their goal is to try to get folks up here before this bill is introduced. But I will send you, they're very, they're, as I said, they may be helpful for at least giving you a sense of the scope of this ozone bill, because it's going to touch a lot of different things in terms of manufacturers in Pueblo. But we'll get that out to you, Councilman Flores. As I said, we were really hoping to be able to get you a draft bill, because that's much more helpful in terms of your being able to look at that and being able and be able to talk to your constituents about it and react to it. But let me reach out to Representative Bacon, because that's where the bill's going to start, is in the House. And let me see if I can pull her off the floor tomorrow and try to see if she's got any indication of how soon the draft might be out. If the draft is going to be coming soon, then I'll get both the talking points and the draft out to you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll be in our office the next time. So I apologize for being in the hallway and the background noise, but we're still at the Capitol. Thank you.
Thank you for making yourselves available. Next, we'll be moving on to our city updates. Ms. Solano.
Thank you, Madam President, City Council. The mayor sends his apologies. He had a family conflict this evening and is not able to attend. And with respect to the other city updates, I'll wait till the City Council meeting next Monday, just to provide sufficient time for the hearing this evening, unless you have questions or direction for subsequent items from me.
Any questions or directions for Ms. Solano?
Yeah, I have one question.
Councilor Winter, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Laura, we had talked about bringing the state demographer in. Do you have an update on that?
Thank you, Councilor. The update is it's tentatively scheduled in April, and I need to follow up with definite plans. And I did ask for the full scope of the demographics of the state, particularly of Pueblo, and including the job vacancies.
All right, thanks.
We'll firm that up this week to see when in April they'll be coming.
Okay, but they are going to give us a whole view of the state and the state's growth.
Correct.
All right, thanks. All right, thank you.
Councilor Maestri.
Crazy Faith Ministries, where do they stand with their decision?
Thank you, Councilor. The ARPA internal team did meet last Wednesday, but our city attorney was gone for the week. So there's email communication that'll go to the city attorney. He's not received any of it yet from the internal team, sending the notes forward to see where and how they did submit their request, and it is for the $500,000. And does Crazy Faith Ministry, the content of their request, does it fall within the compliance of ARPA? And so Dan is looking like has no information just yet. So it has to come from me to him tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Solano? Okay, if that will conclude our city updates portion. So tonight our work session is being dedicated to this homeless hearing, and I've invited the public here to speak about issues you're seeing in the community. After our public is done speaking, we'll have the rescue mission, health solutions, team up to clean up, code enforcement, Pueblo Police Department also give a presentation tonight in regards to homeless and what they're seeing out in the community. So for those of you that signed up to speak, you will have 3 minutes. There will be a timer in the front followed by a buzzer will go off when your 3 minutes is up. And I just want to ask everybody to be professional and kind and courteous here tonight. We're all here together to try to come up with some solutions to deal with our homeless issues in Pueblo. So I know that this is a very hot, testy topic, but I ask all of you to be kind and courteous to everybody in the room tonight, and let's work together and get helping our homeless population. So first off, we have Sean Conte.
Good evening, members of council. Do I need to?
That little button.
Good evening, members of council. I came here because this issue is very important to me. Every Saturday morning, I wake up and I drive all the way to Colorado Springs to go do my workouts at Orange Theory Fitness. And then I go to Trader Joe's, then I go to Whole Foods. Certainly I could shop here, but I want more options. I will not have those options in Pueblo if you continue down the same course that you're on right now. Pueblo is not very appealing for retailers. And Councilman Flores, you should know this firsthand. When you had the economic forum, you touted the dashboard. And the one takeaway was that our incomes are so far below other areas in the state. These incomes, the Trader Joe's, the Whole Foods, that's what they look at. They look at the demographics. Our demographics don't support that. The only things our demographics support are abortion clinics and pawn shops and the plasma bank. And if you look at natural grocers over by Target, which is the market dominant retail corridor, there's a plasma bank there. And why did the plasma bank choose to locate there? They tend to locate in areas where people that donate plasma congregate. They don't locate in the best areas. And they chose to locate there because it's near Fountain Creek. We had hearings in October and November, not hearings, we had meetings at the Pueblo Police Department, and there were business owners there, and the business owners spoke. And we feel that we're not being heard. We feel that council and the mayor continues to coddle the homeless population. You all are more worried about safe injection sites and needle exchanges and affordable housing than you are about protecting the businesses here in Pueblo. And you'll say, oh, the legislation in Denver, deal with it. There are things that we could do. Number one, we should be bulldozing Fountain Creek, not just that once a year annual show to put on, just do it for the cameras. We need to be down there. And the people down there should be charged with trespassing. Although it's initially a non-jailable offense, if they miss court, they'll be held in contempt. And contempt does carry with it a jail sentence. And you don't have to throw these people in jail. Give them credit for completing job application. Give them credit for attending alcohol treatment. But those who are going to miss court when they're charged with trespassing, those that keep going back there, we don't want you in our town. So instead of, doing the 120 days in jail that you might have to do for contempt, here's a bus ticket, get out of there. But by constantly going down and raiding Fountain Creek, we're going to identify the people that are being exploited and the people that need help. And people that want to hand up and people that want help, I will throw money in. I will get other nonprofits and let's help those people. But the criminal element and the people that choose not to abide by the rules, let's get rid of them.
Thank you, Mr. Conte. Next, we have Derek Stoll.
Thank you, members of council. I do apologize for my appearance tonight. I got off work and heard this is going on, and I wanted to come have a few words with you guys. We're here I'm here to humbly ask that this town of Pueblo, Colorado, to have a heart and care for our neighbors. this is not a homeless problem so much as it's an unhoused crisis. And as it's known, it's not going to go away. Sweeping away or legislating and criminalizing is only a Band-Aid, is not a solution. Two things I would like to advocate for are, one, pallet shelter communities, and number two, single room occupancy hotels. I grew up with these in San Diego, which is where I'm from. These are a very economical solution for unhoused individuals. In both of these instances, we could easily make these work if the city applied the needed resources. The single room occupancy would need a retrofitted building, and there are many, many, many empty buildings in Pueblo. A perfect place, which would be the multi-level hotel that's on 4th and Main Street. So I would love to see that turned into some sort of a wraparound services. You know, I mean, we can make it work. We have the resources. Why aren't we doing this? The other thing I want to talk about is the pallet shelter option. It just needs a large parking lot or similar space close to utilities. If it's not close to electric, we can always do solar for the power. I welcome any opportunity to talk to any of you about a way to move forward on any of these solutions that I've proposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Jimmy Duffner.
Hi, thank you. So I'm an advocate for the unhoused and believe that these police sweeps that are going on are unconstitutional and should be discontinued, as well as the fines that have been levied against these people should be dismissed in court, punishing them for not having a place to sleep or not having a place to use the bathroom is senseless. I'm here advocating for safe camping and parking sites, which will give the community resources access to the people who are out there, which will promote them getting the legal help they need, the identification help they need, and the job help they need, as well as showing the human beings that are sleeping behind dumpsters and under bushes and on the river and the creek that we care about them, that we don't want to see them in jail. We don't want to see them incur all of these unnecessary fines and legal problems. We actually want to reach out to them and show them that they are as human as we are. I actually believe that safe camping and parking sites is a very inexpensive and manageable system that we could use to our advantage to bring about change in Pueblo, Colorado, and show that these are human beings and we care about them. We're not just going to punish them for having lost their job or lost their house or lost their income or whatever. Let's give a hand out to them and show them that we actually care. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duffner. Next, we have Joseph Wyman.
Okay. Hello, my name is Joseph Lyman. I had a serious accident 23 years ago and I had 4th-degree burns as a result of it. Had to learn how to walk again and get better. And 23 years later, I developed blood clots and I lost my leg one day going to see my doctor, and she sent me across the street to the hospital. I became homeless with a home. I found out about the shelter in December of last year, or November of last year, when my leg was amputated. And a week later, I was staying there. Or by December or by February, I became a resident. And the mission has helped me greatly. They provide me a safe haven where I can be out of the weather, out of the elements, the bad elements. They were helping me get my medical care back online. And heck, I'm getting a new set of dentures after 25 years through my Medicare, because they gave me an address. And I have an address, but I can't get home because my wheelchair broke, and a push wheelchair won't make it out to the county. No buses run. I guess it's the old Wild Horse over there by Strawberry Fields, over the bridge from the park. That's county, and it's all dirt roads, and I can't get home. My landlord's great. He's holding my place, and everything's going to be great. I just got to stress how much help the mission does. And not everybody is homeless because they don't want to work or I get benefits. I'd like to go back to work. It's never going to happen again. But I'm stuck in the conundrum of being homeless and labeled as such, and I've got a home. Well, not, I've got a place. I've got an address. I'm legal, legit. I just wish everything wasn't like it was, and I could do it differently. But thank you for hearing me, guys.
Thank you. Keith Sandstem? Might have butchered that.
I gotta push a button. All right. I'm homeless because my family, okay, they're, what do you call it, unaccepting to situations, okay? But this homeless shelter has been of great help to me. They've been more help to me than my family. They have taught me a lot of things. They should, if anything's going on over there, it ain't coming from the homeless shelter, because they keep a tight line on that place. So I'm just trying to advocate for the homeless shelter. They keep a tight rope on people in there, and they need to stay open, because everybody that's around, they come there to eat. There's what I forgot what it's called. Yeah, the community help for food. They come there and eat. They feed them, they clothe them, they do all kinds of things for them. They give them as much help as they can. So if they're trying to shut down this building or not give them any money, that's no way. Because a lot of people need help, and whatever's going on with whatever that gentleman said before, it ain't coming from the shelter. It's coming from wherever, because she keeps a tight rope on all of us. Thank you.
Keith, and then just to be clear, the shelter. Hey, Keith, just to be clear, when you talk about the shelter, you're talking about the rescue mission, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're televised tonight, so I wanted to make sure people knew what you were talking about. Okay, next. We have Thomas Neighbors.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Thomas Neighbors. I'm here on behalf of the Pueblo Rescue Mission. Not only am I a resident there, but I also work there. They provide a lot of stuff for the community. Between the directors, Melanie, Lori, and the staff members, they all do a really great job with people. Sure, the rescue mission isn't for everybody. Okay, it's for people that want to work and help themselves out. Okay, get a better place, get back on their feet. A lot of people have bad things to say about it, but those are the people that don't qualify to live there. Okay. We do a lot for outreach, meals, clothing. Saturdays, we have a great big giveaway out in the parking lot, combined with meals and lunches, you know. As a resident, you're required to attend classes such as AA, Bible study. And they do fun things like arts and crafts and stuff like that, Tai Chi, meditation. But you learn a lot of stuff there by yourself when you're there. And I have nothing bad to say about it, but good things. They've helped me out a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Speaker is Lene Trujillo.
Good evening, Council. My name is Lene Trujillo. I have the great opportunity to be a case manager with the Pueblo Rescue Mission. I understand that a lot of people are concerned about our homeless population, and their concerns are valid. However, I don't want our population to all be labeled as such. I get the opportunity to work with great individuals every day, including our residents and our outreach citizens. We provide them food, clothing, living essentials, also anything that they need for housing options and work. Unfortunately, here in Pueblo, we do have a scarcity for housing options and the workforce right now. I also wanted to bring to attention, I have the honor of reading a letter written by one of our residents. Here's how his letter goes. My name is Patrick. I am a resident in the Step Back In program. I have a history of drug addiction, living a hard life of bad choices, has left me with a traumatic brain injury. So I'm asking Lene, my case manager, to read my story for me. The staff at the Pueblo Rescue Mission help each of us by taking the time to get to know each one of us as individuals. Everyone's story is unique because everyone has a different reason for how they ended up here. The mission looks at where we are at in life day by day, and they use every chance to give us tools to operate to be successful. They help me manage my money. They have groups to help me figure out who I am and what I need to be doing. They lay out the right choices for us so we won't ever find ourselves in that situation again. The mission starts over every day with our mistakes, and they help us step by step, day by day. This program works for me because day by day is how some of us have learned to survive. The mission pushes us. I have a second chance here because of God and because of the mission. Thank you, Patrick Liptrap. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Our next speaker is Benjamin Stevens.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Stevens. I got about a week and a half into this. The young gentleman was talking about, let's get him a bus ticket, or that has happened to me within the past week. I'm from Georgia. I was trying to save my marriage 2 Februarys ago, ended up getting in trouble. Got a CDL career. Because of this trouble, was a felony. I got to wait for an interstate compact, which takes 30 to 45 calendar days. I luckily had enough money to get a Greyhound bus ticket to Pueblo out of Trinidad. They threw me fat on my face during snowy weather, the blizzard that just came through about 5 or 6 days ago. So getting a bus ticket is, I'm the example right now. I have nothing. I've walked the streets for the past 4 or 5 days wondering where my next meal will come from. Is it gonna rain again? Is it gonna snow? Am I gonna get beat down by the sun? As a emergency individual, they let me stay the night at Rescue Mission. On my Greyhound trip up here, I called and I talked to management. They were so loving and kind about accepting me, not only accepting me, but helping me find employment. My question is, if we do stop the raids, what are we gonna do whenever we get on a bus ticket? Yeah, I would like to know, because I'm at this point. If it wasn't for rescue mission, nobody would want to help me. I wouldn't be dressed the way I am. I wouldn't have had a shower. If everybody would just drift off in their mind for a minute, if y'all was wandering the streets at night, where would y'all's next meal come from tonight? Where would y'all sleep? I've had the career, I've had the house, I've had cars, that the career problem is not, I've been in positions like this because of one mess up. They've extradited me from Georgia. I have not one member here. Because of rescue mission, I don't have to worry about what I'm gonna eat tonight or where I'm gonna go or if I'm gonna get a shower tonight. Within the past 7 days, rescue mission has helped me get my driver's license, helped me get food stamps, helped me get Medicaid, gave me a place to stay. I'm a permanent resident now, open full facility to me. Us as humans, whether we're homeless or whether we're members of the society, we just want to be loved, heard, and accepted. That's it. August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream." If I've ever known anybody to live up to that, it is rescue mission. To be able to hold us responsible for structure, stability, how we do our time, going out looking for a job. And thank y'all.
Thank you. Next, we have Pastor Paul Montoya.
Good evening, council. Glad to be here this evening. My name is Pastor Paul Montoya with the old Martin Luther King Church and Youth Center over on the east side. I no longer have that church anymore over there because the prior owner had passed away. She was a very elderly lady and she got sick, ended up in a life care center in Denver, and she passed on. So now the family is forced to sell the church and her home here in Pueblo. But I'm going in a different direction. I've been helping the homeless since 2010. I've sat in front of numerous city council members, Larry, Dennis Flores, Mark Aliff, he's all do a wonderful job for the city. But now I'm going to be going through people helping people in faith in the Pueblo community. I met with the lawyer last week. I met with an attorney, and I met with an accountant. I've never needed my own 501c3 because every church I've been to, I was handed the keys to the church. So now that I don't have a church, I'm going in a different direction, and I got my own 501c3 finally. And it's going to be people helping people in faith in the Pueblo community, because when COVID was here, the small businesses that were struggling would get these cars, take them to these businesses, and people, those cars attract people. And you know what? They would go in there and shop. Some of those small businesses said, "Pastor Paul, I never had so much business before, since we hadn't had these cars here." I'm willing to help anybody in Pueblo. I help the homeless. I've spoke with Andrew Hayes from the city trash cleanup. I have the homeless picking up their own trash. It's located on City Center Drive in Dayton. You guys drive by there. There's over 200 bags of trash out there that they picked along that river from 8th Street all the way to Santa Fe Drive. I mean, that pile is humongous. They were supposed to pick up that trash last Friday and it wasn't picked up. One of the ladies called me, messaged me, left me a really, really bad text message cussing at me. Says that she pays $75 a month for trash. Why can't the city help? If I have to, you guys come back on Wednesday. I can get a few of the homeless, help me financially, and I'll take that stuff to the dump myself. Let's clean it up, because the lady said she's starting to have mice in her home. We don't want that. Them homeless are cleaning up them camps. I've got numerous pictures just from January to yesterday. They've cleaned it up. You walk down there and you'll see the difference if any of you walk down there. You know what? I have Leroy back here with me. He was homeless for 9 years. He helps me now where my wife don't have to put herself in danger going down to that river bottom. Because you know what? When I was helping the homeless in the night, who better to watch the homeless than the homeless? I wouldn't have to pay Titan Security or TNT Security because the homeless would take care of the homeless. They know who the homeless are. They have respect for them. Leroy, he's on disability, but he said he was going to die down there freezing to death. I said, you get a disability check, give me 200 from each of your check and we'll get you an apartment. Wish I had more time. Thank you, guys.
Next, we have Kim Bowman.
Good evening. Am I on? Yep. My name's Kim Bowman. I'm the Executive Director of Posada. We're pleased to have the support of the city and work with you in this process of navigating our community's current housing crisis. Posada serves as Pueblo's singular community housing development organization, also known as ACHODO. In our capacity as ACHODO, we're focused on the ownership, development, and sponsorship of affordable housing projects in Pueblo. We've been operating as ACHODO since 1997. Posada provides emergency shelter to families with children, transitional housing and permanent housing to homeless and low-income families with children, veterans, youth, and seniors. We maintain 119 units of affordable housing in the community with an additional 102 units under development at this time. Access to housing is a primary reason for the surge we're experiencing relating to our community's homeless crisis. Housing researchers use the example of musical chairs. Imagine there are 10 people for 9 chairs. One person weighed down by poor health does not make it to a chair. Is the problem that person's health or the lack of chairs? Our community has less than 2% availability of affordable housing. We're experiencing a supply and demand problem. The housing that is available is not affordable. Rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is averaging $950 today. Our agency is dealing with a population that is income challenged in a community with minimal housing resources. In addition to the challenges faced by would-be renters, developers such as myself are plagued by NIMBY issues where homeowners protest proposed housing, fearing it will change the makeup of their communities or reduce the value of their homes. In the face of increased demand fueled by changing demographics and other factors, increasing our community's housing stock must be on the agenda for all of us who envision a healthier future for our community. I'm hopeful that you will support our efforts to create healthy places that benefit all community residents, especially those with the fewest resources to preserve and promote safe and affordable housing for low-income renters in our community. Thanks very much.
Next up, we have Randy Thurston.
You know, I want to start off by commending Posada Rescue, the soup kitchen. We've got some of the best resources for the homeless anywhere, but that's not what we're here tonight for. The people that are irresponsible, the people that are illegal, the people that are doing damage, they're not here. In fact, I had a young man that moved onto one of the properties I had for sale, and he had to be on the boulevard because he says every day he gets beat up by these people that are coming in. They're being bussed in. They're being dropped off. They're the worst of the worst of the worst that other communities can't wait to get rid of, and they're coming here. The mayor's not here. He had another thing. This is his agenda. His agenda is let's open the borders for anybody that wants to come here, and we're going to treat everybody equally. Well, guess what? What is coming into Pueblo isn't Pueblo's issue. The soup kitchen, I worked at the soup kitchen for 2 years. The same people aren't there. They can't even eat inside now because of the abuse and the people that have come in. So the people that are here, I commend them. They're all responsible. But for God's sake, where's the leadership? Where's the agenda? The mayor's agenda is we want to do safe needles. We want to just bring anybody that wants to. Oh, but we're not busing them in. Show me a picture. Well, I guarantee you that where they're being bussed in. All you have to do is walk the streets and you tell me anybody that you recognized from a month ago. So how are they getting here? So I don't buy it. And I'm tired of the dance. We have law-abiding citizens that are constantly, every day, used to be able to go to the park, used to go to the store. And that's not happening now because the criminal element, the irresponsible people that have nothing to lose, who's not here, are the ones that are creating the problem. That's what this meeting is about, not all the great programs that we have. And I'm going to tell you with this safe needle exchange needs to go away. In Denver, they have that. Everybody is wanting, everybody, absolutely is wanting Pueblo to pass this so Denver now can take the pressure off of them. I was down there on the in Ordway in La Junta, and they can't wait for us to pass it so they can send all of the people that are addicted to drugs here because it's a nice, safe place. Go to Pueblo. They embrace you. In fact, the homeless that are coming here, if you were talking to the right people, they would say they're here because they were told Pueblo is very sensitive to you. They have so many programs. They have so many benefits. They have all these things. Go to Pueblo. And for whatever reason, the amount of their bus ticket is exactly what it comes to go to Pueblo. Now tell me, are we not seeing this? Are we so stuck in not wanting to offend anybody that we're not into that situation? I know Larry has a question for me.
Thank you.
Larry?
I'll be asking this again later on. We need a plan, what we're going to do with this situation or our housing situation, the whole thing.
That's why we're here.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Thurston.
Okay, can I speak just briefly on this?
No, you're done, sir.
Okay, well, again, if you don't want the solution, that's fine.
Okay. Next, we have Brenda Vincent.
Good evening. Is this on already? Okay. I have a business. I co-own Colorado's Custom Teas on Northern Avenue. I've been open at that location for 8 years. The homeless people that we have isn't who I've seen here from the rescue mission. I used to see, when I first opened my business there, I would see people with the motorized wheelchairs going up and down Northern, and I would talk to them, and I used to call it my own little scooter alley. I also would see the children from the elementary school go walk over to the Ray Aguilar Park. We don't see that anymore. So much of our freedom has been taken away to this situation. But I believe that is in my area is the homeless drug addicts. My shop is right around the corner from the needle exchange. Business windows are constantly being broken out in my area. My business has we invested in safety glass for our windows, cost that was quite a bit, but just even vandalism would be devastating to our business. The Christmas light decorations that are put on the poles are awesome. They look beautiful, but they're basically just used for extension cords for charging devices. They're unwrapped off of the poles and used for that. So it's not as beautiful as what it's supposed to be. I've witnessed naked people running through the streets of Northern. Normal people probably wouldn't do that. I know I wouldn't. It would take quite a bit for me to do that. I've seen people carrying guns, knives. I've seen them do drugs right out in front of my shop. I've had a person that was passed out in my doorway one morning going to work. And so I called the police, and they asked me if this person is doing any harm. And I said, well, of course, nobody's going to enter my business. I've got somebody passed out at my doorway. And of course they sent an ambulance to go pick him up. So these aren't the same people that we're talking about that we're hearing from the missions. I've even had people come into my business demanding cash and free needles. You know, they think that since I'm attached to the same building that I can just easily go next door and give out free needles. You know, I can't and I won't, but every day I have trash, wasted food. There's a food box that's on the corner of my business. A lot of it is just dumped out. It's not even being consumed. I know some people do get some use out of it. I also have a driveway next to my business. It's basically used for drug use and it's a human restroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Velma Campbell.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and the council's holding this session on this very important topic. As some of you know, I'm a specialist in public health in this community. I practice medicine here and have since 1988. My name is Velma Campbell. Although the theme of this hearing is homelessness, I will refer as much as possible to unhoused people. This is because I'm speaking from respect for the people of our community, some of whose homes have no roof or indeed walls. But what they do have is their home, humble as it may be. Thinking that way may lead to a more respectful approach than I have heard from some this evening. Management of the needs that we're discussing is an investment in our community's best resource, our people, our neighbors. The first step to remedy homelessness is housing, as has been shown in numerous studies, in international programs, and by the recurring failures of draconian programs in some cities. Contrast that with success stories which are there to be found, such as Salt Lake City, where a Housing First program has been very successful. The next step is to put housing with those programs to invest in the needs of our neighbors. A good example is the Southern Colorado harm reduction proposal that we heard at the last session. Dorm-style emergency shelters are essential and life-saving, but not sufficient because they do so much, but can't address the full extent of the need. From the public health perspective, housing is more than simply a roof overhead. Maslow's hierarchy of needs identifies shelter as one of the most essential. It means an address for mail, job applications, and health appointments. It means safety and security, especially for children and youth, enhancing the ability to stay in school. A mailing address, phones, chargers, privacy, security, self-respect, all are nearly impossible without stable housing. Stable housing can be a range of options from capsule-style transitional housing in larger buildings, such as the empty Kmart buildings, to single-room apartments and so on. Our neighbors cannot live on a rotating cycle of buses. Pueblo has an intense need for affordable housing, being almost 4,000 units short at the lower rental dollar levels. Lacking secure housing leaves our community members at risk for homelessness and ruin, which is not good for them nor for business or development. I strongly suggest that Pueblo fund programs such as Posada, Southern Colorado harm reduction, and work to finish developing alternative housing that can be stable.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Next, we have Jeff Shaw from Pedco.
Thank you, Council, for letting us come in and everybody speak a little bit. And our comments aren't directed at criticism to any one group or agency. We recognize this is a tremendous issue and a problem. And there's a lot of great people doing great work, from the faith organizations to the city to the police department and everybody in between. Normally, this isn't something that we speak about publicly. Historically, we haven't, mainly because when we run into prospect issues, we're marketing to the outside world. And when they hear it from us, it kind of shows that there's a potential issue. And so it kind of excludes us, especially when we go after site selectors and large manufacturings. But I want to share kind of three quick stories of issues that we've run into that is starting to show a little bit of a problem with our prospect world. And granted, we know this happens in every community. We're not unique. And this could happen in Denver, Springs, or all over the place. But we also know that in our world, it's very competitive and we're in a competitive environment. And if we're not cleaner, safer, faster, better workforce, build buildings faster, we're going to be at a disadvantage. So that's where these comments come from. We've had two manufacturers, large manufacturers out of the industrial park that have had corporate executives come into the community, and we've been trying to get them to stay in Pueblo. It used to be they'd stay in Carl Springs. Obviously, they stay in the Broadmoor, and these are Fortune 100 type corporate executives. We finally got them to stay in the downtown, in the Marriott downtown. And two situations happened. And again, this isn't a criticism of anybody, but it's just reality. One of those individuals were walking back after a nice evening on the Riverwalk, having dinner and coming back and got solicited for drugs, which obviously was alarming to them. Granted, it can happen anywhere, but it was an issue enough that it was brought to our attention. A second one was the same type of a situation. Another large manufacturer had executives staying downtown at the Marriott and decided to go for a run on the Riverwalk early in the morning and got solicited for prostitution. Most recently, 2 weeks ago, we ran into an issue with a prospect. It's a large manufacturing out of the Midwest, approximately 100 employee manufacturer. That first thing that happened to them at 8:30 in the morning is they got out of the parking lot and they parked up at the chamber parking lot. And this isn't a criticism of the chamber because it could happen in our parking lot too. The first thing they witnessed was somebody shooting up drugs just outside the parking lot at 8:30 in the morning. Obviously walked down to us, and part of our conversations a lot is crime. Homeless happens, people recognize that, but they want to know what the communities are doing about it. We're lucky that this manufacturer is a faith-based type manufacturer. It's a private organization, private company out of the Midwest that has a large faith base to it. And so they understand it, but they really kind of want to know as they move into this community what the reactions, what the communities are doing. We've also had some issues, and it's not just isolated down here. We've had some issues out at the airport industrial park where we've had some manufacturers have reached out to us to find out if other manufacturers have had, short of it is we've had about 40 to 50% of the manufacturers in the industrial park have had criminal issues, have had crime at their locations. So
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you.
Next, we have Danny Jans Diaz.
Thank you, members of the board, people of Pueblo. My name is Danny James Diaz, for those that know. I've been here for about 2.5 years. And originally I came and I was just looking for just a new start for myself. And I definitely found that. I found the right people at the right time, made good friends, and placed good faith into people, into me, and what I do. So, and I've just wanted to highlight mostly the Pueblo Cooperative Care, the Blessing Boxes, and the Police of Pueblo. With the Police of Pueblo, they got more than just law enforcement on their hands. They have therapy. They have babysitting. They have all these things that come along with their job besides law enforcement, especially with the staffing issues that you have with the law enforcement here in Pueblo. It's just, I could see why certain things are kind of somewhat blown off or judged as not monumental or of importance. So I think having some type of task force or something to address the emotional and mental issues of the homeless people and the homeless population within Pueblo is definitely something to support the police force so they can get back to the main task at hand, protecting businesses, protecting homes, and doing law enforcement as their job entails. The Blessing Boxes, they've been exploding like crazy, but yeah, there are some trouble issues around the main city centers where they just, all the food gets thrown out and everything. And it seems like the Blessing Boxes kind of figured how to manage that themselves. They kind of let the ones that are, where that's happening, kind of die off and they start new blessing boxes elsewhere. So I just wanted to highlight that it's a blessing to have that from the community for the community. And the last thing was for the Pueblo Cooperative Care. I had a lot of pride in not applying for food assistance right off the bat, but then I didn't know that was the number one thing holding me back from the plethora of services that Pueblo has to offer for homeless people or at-risk people like myself. I was at risk, but now I do have a place to stay and I pay rent and everything. But I just wanted to highlight that maybe needs to be some type of conglomeration or something that categorizes all the services together besides just a pamphlet or a piece of paper, something a little more unifying on that end for all the organizations to come together. Because I've noticed it too online through Facebook that some of the organizations and the particular leaders of these organizations may not agree with each other or how to do certain things, so they refuse to work with each other. And yeah, that was it. Those were the main things that were kind of stewing in my brain. So thank you, the City of Pueblo, and you guys have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Gary Weaver.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the unhoused in our community. I represent the Faith Leaders in Action organization in Pueblo as their communicator. And we have been working on the issue of homelessness and housing for about 6 years now, working collaboratively with all the many organizations in our community that work so well together to try to answer real problems in a way that brings out the best in us as opposed to the worst. That's the spirit of Pueblo, which I've witnessed and enjoyed and been part of, that I have so much faith in, that if we really do keep on task of what we're trying to do, we're going to solve our problems. But homelessness is not our problem. Affordable housing is. That's the answer to homelessness. If we can provide a way for them to get to affordable housing, and if we would provide affordable housing in Pueblo, both problems that have been seen as problems would be taken care of. When I received this fact sheet from Colorado Coalition on the Homeless, they included this 2016 report that found that Colorado's 76 largest cities have 351 anti-homeless ordinances. Anti-homeless ordinances, that means we're against homeless people in a big brush kind of way, that there's something about homeless people that makes them less than human, less than our brothers and sisters, less than our neighbors, less than members of our community. I understand that some of these ordinances include, are against and deem illegal in Colorado, include camping, sleeping, sitting, lying down, loitering, storing property, sharing food, and solicitation of money in public. At the U.S. Department of Justice, Bell versus Boise in 2015, this statement was made. It should be uncontroversial that punishing conduct that is a universal and unavoidable consequence of being human violates the Eighth Amendment. Sleeping is a life-sustaining activity It must occur at some time and some place. If a person literally has nowhere else to go, then enforcement of an anti-camping ordinance against that person criminalizes her for being homeless.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Homelessness is not a crime.
Next, we have Karen Blagg. Karen Blagg.
Good evening. I'm Karen Blagg. This issue is a big concern within the community. We all know that. But there is a lot of apathy developing and directed towards our lack of leadership in Pueblo. I have been met with and seen it as I talk to others and they express concerns. Ongoing concerns are not about innocent homeless, it's the criminal element. We have in place shelters to care for those who have fallen on hard luck, as some of the previous speakers have spoken of. The lines should not be blurred between the two. These people here and those like them are not the ones causing issues. So many Pueblo citizens and business owners are feeling that there is no action being taken by leadership and the criminal problem is growing. I encourage you all to get in the community and let us know what steps are being taken to protect the Pueblo people and what is being done to make our community unfriendly, not friendly to those who have created the current unsafe environment. The environment of drug use, assaults, as I personally experienced, fires, fountains being kept from children to enjoy, camps, vandalism and theft in businesses, inappropriate behavior, weapons, people not returning to Pueblo to visit, and restaurants and other business environments being made uncomfortable and unsafe, ordinances not being enforced, just to name a few of the issues. The physical beauty of the Riverwalk has been overshadowed by the ugliness of the criminal homeless. Please show us that we are valued, not only as a community, but as individuals as well. Pour money into us, into the community. Please find solutions addressing our safety, our concerns, so we can feel safe again. Please do not pour money into programs like a free needle program. It's truly irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blagg. And that concludes, is there somebody, one on Zoom? You have a name? Ms. Jones, are you on? Meryl? Meryl? Oh,
Yes, I am. Just
we
working my
go.
way back over there. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and just get to a location where I can turn on my video. Grand evening, everyone. Everyone has spoken of the challenges and short-term possibilities. I'm Meralgo Renee Jones, a Pueblo native and a visionary author, community organizer, mother. And so I commend and applaud and echo many of the short-term solutions that have been spoken about. I also even hear some of the more challenging perspectives on that some of these people who are causing issues should be charged. And I hear and validate all those perspectives. And may we call upon a balanced perspective that finds the middle ground of all of those, even though that might be a challenging balancing act, although it is the equinox today. So let us invoke that balance energy today. So I'm here to speak more about the long-term vision that will magnetize us into action further. And I usually like to speak in poetic form as a way to be remembered as well, to speak in and reach your hearts. So let us visualize now that every person is homeful. We are experiencing homefulness beyond our greatest dreams. We have community gardens on every block. We have mom and pop shops and grocery stores again, that all started through community microfunding and through us simply taking a little bits of budgets that we realized were being wasted and putting them towards first and foremost, people who are well technologically capable and who are not needing mental wellness services, helping families, children, and women and men get off of the streets and finding that their worth matters, that they're getting into job training programs, into these affordable programs where they could pay $200 to $400 to live in a small room and slowly up-level their ability to contribute back to our society. Invoking sacred economy, we are remembering that we have all the solutions that we need. As we bring back ancient wisdom, let us call upon our Native American leaders who have wisdom for us in this now, as well as other leaders who have done this around the world. Let us do case studies. As an engineer myself, I know that there are hours of research to be done, and let the community help our city council leaders as well as our other leaders so that it doesn't feel like a burdensome task that they are taking on alone. Let our young leaders lead the way as well. As a teacher, I know young people want to contribute. Let us create maker challenges and have every minute of these young people's time in school not be towards only just memorizing things that they may not need, but let them see that they can be change makers. Let us have competitions for them to give us their ideas. Let us give them the tools and create maker spaces for the homeless, or should we say the people who are experiencing homelessness, people without homes. Let them move into homefulness by becoming makers themselves through revitalizing programs in our public community college and many, many other programs that are already out there doing the good work. And as for those that are
Thank you.
the state hospital, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, that does conclude our public comment from for this evening. For as far as our presentations goes, we're gonna have the Public Rescue Mission up first.
Good evening, City Council. I just wanted to share with you what the rescue mission is doing right now, so you guys have a better understanding of how we've kind of evolved since I came in, and COVID kind of shifted its perspective and its influence on us. So you heard from some of my guys, and that we run a tight ship, and that we do a lot of great things, and we do. We want to do a lot more great things, but I want to share with you where we are right now so you understand. So I want to talk about our programming, our capacity, and then just kind of summarize where we are. So we decided to put the programming back in once COVID lifted some of its mandates, because before we were just a shelter that was holding people and quarantining people. So I looked at the areas that I thought were the reason people were coming through the shelter in a revolving door. And those issues ended up being substance use, mental illness, and poor financial management. Most of the people coming through the shelter struggled and had generational poverty modeled for them in a way that it made it impossible for them to navigate housing or even sustain housing. And so I thought, we need to, there's no housing in Pueblo right now. So what we'll do is we'll focus on resolving these issues and stabilizing them, because if we don't do that and we find them housing and we send them out, they're going to come right back because they're evicted or because they haven't developed a sense of civic responsibility about how to take care of other people's things. So this is where the program was born. So the Step Back In program covers a wide range of areas. When you come in, there are things that you have to do in order to be part of the program. Physical wellness is something you have to engage in. You have to get a primary care doctor. You have to stop overusing the ER. You have to stop going to the ER because you have an earache or a migraine or things like that. So we get everybody established with a primary care physician. Mental wellness. If you have a mental illness or a mental health diagnosis, you're required to get into treatment, whether that looks like therapy or medication management, it's part of the program. If that's the diagnosis and you have that, that's what you've got to do. Addiction and recovery. If you struggle with substance use or recovery, same thing. You've got to get into a recovery program. If that's medication assisted, then we go to Health Solutions or we go to Gateway and we get you involved with Suboxone, methadone, Vivitrol, whatever that looks like, whatever medication assisted support you need.
that has to happen. Financial stewardship. All of our residents are engaged in a program called RISE. It's a 16-week financial management program that takes place at Praise Assembly. And so our residents get bused in a van, takes 2 or 3 trips. They go over to Praise Assembly every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. and participate in a financial management program. They all keep budget binders, which is kind of a simple checkbook kind of binder. They keep all of their expenses. They log their expenses and they're accountable for them. They have to share with us where they spent their money and why they spent their money. I obviously don't have any stronghold and I can't force them not to spend it in places I wouldn't choose, but we try to create an awareness that they didn't have before. Many of them have an understanding and it's normalized to shop at Loaf and Jug. They use food stamps. Their mothers use food stamps. Their grandparents use food stamps. It's not abnormal to go to Loaf and Jug and shop where the markup of products is 300 to 500%. So financial management is part of this. We need to get them stable so they can sustain the housing that they get. If they're not stable mentally, if they're not stable in their addictions, if they're not stable financially, they'll ruin, they'll destroy, they won't be able to pay their rent, they'll lose the housing we get for them. They have to be stable first, otherwise it's a moot point. So we also encourage them to seek employment. If they're employment eligible, they have to do so in a certain amount of time. If they're on SSI or disability and they're not work employable, then they're work employable at the shelter. Everybody does chores, everybody engages and steps into the environment. They're responsible. They're responsible for preparing outreach meals. They're responsible for handing them out. They're responsible for collecting the data for the people that come and eat with us that don't live with us. They're responsible for cleaning. They're responsible for cleaning up the entire area down the whole block where we are, because this is their environment. That's how we help them promote and learn civic responsibility, for them to have pride in their own surroundings and their own environment. So that also creates a community consciousness. Right now, we're in the middle of preparing a program with Blessings Realty on tenant ethics. We need them to understand when you destroy a property, when you violate lease rules, when you bring 10 people to live in a 2-bedroom apartment, when you bring dogs you're not supposed to have, you create hardships and there is a fallout for other people in the future who have housing vouchers that want to get housing. There's a consequence for that. And so we want to teach them responsible tenant ethics. Everything in my shelter is transactional. I come from the world of the Department of Corrections. The only positive thing I carried out of that was that I'm transactional. I'll pour into you if you pour into you. If you do the work, I will do the work and I will join you. We have a thing called an amazing store and we have amazing dollars. If you get a job, you do things I don't ask you to do, you participate, you go above and beyond, you help other people who are less able than you within the program, you get amazing dollars. You can spend those dollars however you want. You participate in groups beyond what I require you to. We have incentives, we have amazing dollars, we have things that will benefit them that they can use. The social engagement, we have groups. We have 13 or 14 groups that run throughout the week, every day. Everything from mental health groups, substance use and recovery groups. You heard them talk about Tai Chi, mindfulness, meditation, Bible studies, AA. There's something going on every day. And if you're living there, you're required to be in at least 4 a week. And we count them every week. And if you're not in your groups, the first time you get written up, the second time you're out for 24 hours, third time you're out of the program. And then you're going to be welcome to shelter. And what I'm going to show you next is my other program. So these are all the programs that we're running right now. There's something going on every day. And when you come in, your program is put together uniquely for you. If you come in with substance use and addiction, you're going to be in recovery and you're going to be in DBT and you're going to be in Connections, which is a CBT group. You can choose the 4th one, but depending upon what your issues are and what you're struggling with, we're going to decide how to tailor your program so that it uniquely fits you. So our first stop program is our emergency shelter. First and foremost, I'm an emergency shelter. I'm a low barrier shelter. The bar is not set any lower for what you need to do to come in and shelter with me. And we do that 365 days a year. I currently have about 47 people in the Step Back In program, and we do emergency shelter every night. At 9 p.m., you can come in. We do a search of the person and their possessions because I need to make sure when somebody comes in that I can keep my staff, the residents, and the rest of the people that come in and shelter safe. And they come in with everything. They come in with machetes and dirty needles and fentanyl and crack and heroin and meth and butane torches and everything else you can imagine. And we take those things, I collect them, I put them in a Ziploc bag and I lock them in a safe. I'm not going to deny somebody shelter and let them freeze to death because of their addiction or because of their poor choices or because they're walking around with a machete for their own safety. I take those things, they come in, they can shelter and sleep with us all night. And then in the morning they leave at 7 o'clock. I give them back their belongings and they can go off property and do whatever it is they choose to do. It's not my place to remove those items, but it is my place to make sure that I provide shelter for anybody who's willing to surrender those things because they need to be warm and they want to be safe. So that's the process. And we go through that every night at 9 o'clock. When they come in, we give them a place to sleep. We feed them. We allow them to bring 2 small bags in. We store those bags in a safe place and they're there all night and everything's good. The next morning they exit at 7 a.m. In this last few months, we've had some days where it's, single degree digits in the morning. So it's not feasible to leave at 7. When it's not, they stay all day. They can have breakfast, they can have lunch, and we'll meet that need. At nighttime, when we do groups, the reason why we don't bring them in earlier than 9 is because we have groups and things going on, but they're encouraged and invited to come in early if they want to participate in those groups. So they exit and then they come back again the next night at 9 o'clock. First come, first serve. When we fill up, and we fill up based on capacity for beds and also capacity for staff. If I have 3 people staffing the shelter all night and everybody that staffs the shelter on graveyards is an ex-employee of the Department of Corrections. So it's a very safe environment from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And so when they come in, if I have someone call off and I've only got 2, that changes how many people I'm going to be able to bring in. It might be less because now we can't be outnumbered. We have a huge population of residents and then we have this population on top. So we have the capacity for 60 male beds and 35 female beds at the mission right now. Like I said, we're averaging, right now we have 47 in the program and we shelter at night for emergency services anywhere from 20 to 30 right now currently. So our dorms are closed all day. That's when administrative stuff is going on. The shelter is being sanitized, programs are going on, and everybody can come back in at 4 o'clock if you're in the step back in program. At 4:30, we serve our outreach meal. We serve anywhere from 40 to 70 outreach trays a night for anybody who walks up to the mission and is hungry. We serve between 5,000 and 7,000 meals a month. And we have residents and staff cooking those meals, and our residents pass those meals out every night. 5 o'clock, the residents eat inside. And then at 9 o'clock, the first stop clients start coming in. And then 10 o'clock is the curfew. So we have a lot of people that like to shelter with us on an emergency service basis. And there are a lot who don't. Okay. So, and the ones that don't are typically the clients that don't want to surrender things like the drugs they use or the needles they use. And so they're not going to be allowed to come in. And then there are the people that don't have us as a preference. We don't start till 9 o'clock. So we try to serve as many of the population as we can. We went to the bus transit station when it was cold, I think in December, about 30 people laying on the floor in there. We went in there, I invited them all. I had the van and we said, get in the van, come back. If you come back with us, you don't have to get kicked out at 6 a.m. because they are going to kick you out at 6 a.m. You can stay all day. There's food, there's waffles, there's Jimmy Dean sandwiches, we got hot chocolate, not a one got off the floor. So we have a service resistant population that probably will never shelter with us based on the requirements and the things that we do. When you come in at 9 o'clock, you're not going back outside to smoke. I'm not going to do that search and pat down every 10 minutes while you go outside and smoke. I'm just not going to do it. So we do have people that choose not to shelter with us for various reasons. So on Saturdays, we just started on January 7th, we do what's called Outreach Saturdays. Every Saturday, our residents and we have volunteers in the community come and we prepare 50 to 75 sandwiches and we put sandwich bags together. We have donations that come in weekly and I have no storage space. So my solution to this was to put everything out that comes in every week, just keep handing it back out. We set up 8 to 12 tables in our parking lot every Saturday with food, clothing, sleeping bags, tents, shoes, blankets, hygiene, backpacks, duffel bags, suitcases, anything that gets donated to me turns right back around that next Saturday and we hand it out. Different agencies come and support us. They'll come and hand out Narcan. Somebody's coming next Saturday to do haircuts. So different people come and offer their services, but we're there from 3 until 5 handing out tons and tons of clothes to people. When they get to the end of the line, we invite them to sign up for services with PCHC, who comes every Saturday to get people enrolled for healthcare. And we give them the opportunity to complete a VI SPDAT, which is the housing questionnaire that you need to be on in order to get onto the by name list. And so they have the opportunity to do that at the same time. So that's every Saturday that we do that. So this is kind of a summary. So if you're in Step Back In, you're going to have a case manager, you're going to have an assigned bunk, that's always yours, lockers, an assigned locker for your snacks and your food, employment supports and resources, recovery programming, we have clothing that we offer, and we have hygiene. If you're coming in as a first stop client, you're going to get an unassigned bed that's capacity driven. You're going to get storage overnight for your bags and snacks and coffee. I look at the Step Back In program as well as I'm hoping that those first stop clients will look in the back and say, how do you get one of those lockers? How do you get back there? And then we have that conversation. Well, this is what you need to do. And I kind of use the Step Back In program like I'm luring injured birds in with crumbs. And every week, at least 2 or 3 people will get tired of being an emergency services client and asked to be in the program. And I know that what we're doing works. In the last 5.5 months, we have helped people stabilize and leave and find their own housing. So 27 people in the last 5.5 months have left the mission, just stabilizing, getting jobs. Only 5 of those people had vouchers. The rest of them stabilized, got jobs, and are out paying the market value rent that anybody else is paying. And so we know that that works. We've had 36 people come through there in the last 5.5 months have gotten employed. And so that's the other thing that tells me that it works. I want to be part of the solutions that everybody is trying to come up with. Unfortunately, I know a lot of us are siloed. I know we have some differences in philosophies about how we approach things, and that probably keeps us from wanting to work more more with each other. I'm not a river camp kind of person. I don't do the deliver food, exchange needles. That's just not who I am. But if you come up to the shelter and you come to outreach and you come and ask me for my help, I will give it to you. I want to do outreach. I'm just not going to be somebody that goes down and delivers room service or takes food anywhere. But that doesn't mean I still don't want to be collaborative and make sure that we have solutions. I would love to see there be low barrier housing or transitional housing, and it start with my program. Because if you just bring some pallet houses in and say, give them to these people, they'll be ruined. They'll be wrecked. They'll be destroyed. They'll be out of commission because they're not stabilized. They haven't learned how to take care of other people's things. And I think that the program we have is a good conduit. Come here, get stabilized, and then the pallet house or that kind of housing will be your practice run. And then from there, you elevate. But I would like to see the shelter be part of whatever solutions everybody thinks are best for Pueblo. And I hope you guys understand and see that what we're trying to do, everything that we can do from our perspective. And I encourage any of you, if you haven't come to the shelter since it opened in 2020, to come and take a tour and see what we're doing and come during our programs and watch what's happening. We're doing some really incredible work there. Thank you.
Melanie. Does anybody have any questions for Melanie? Questions for Melanie? Counselor Tencia?
That shelter resistant population. They the problem population that our businesses are talking about and other people in the community are talking about? Are they the ones that, like Mr. Shaw said, are literally accosting people for money?
I think they are, but I don't want to call them a criminal homeless population. I think we obviously have a housing crisis here. But I tell you, I come from the world of mental health, and I was a psych nurse for 25 years. I'm a licensed professional counselor. That's what I did at DOC. That's what I did at Parkview Hospital. We have a mental illness problem. We have a problem with mental illness, and mental illness feeds substance use and vice versa. And I think that the problem is that these people do engage in criminal activity, and they are harassing, and they are causing a lot of issues with their behaviors. But I think those behaviors stem from untreated mental illness and untreated addiction or poorly treated addiction. They're falling through the cracks. They need much more hand holding. If I didn't hold the hands of the people at my shelter like I do, they probably wouldn't be as successful. And people say, well, these are grown adults. They are. But what you have to remember is sometimes when people struggle with addiction, wherever their addictions took place, if they started when they were 14 or 15, They're kind of emotionally stagnant and their maturity kind of stopped at that time that they started using. And so it's a whole relearning process. It's starting over, learning life skills and learning things that to us seem like common sense, but that population they're mentally ill, they're struggling with addiction, and they have their high guards up. They're very mistrusting as a result sometimes of mental illness, and also as a result of people saying, I'm going to help you, and then not getting the help, and then they fell through the cracks. And so now they don't trust anybody. And that's why I put outreach into place. I thought if I could get them to come on Saturdays, and I'm there every Saturday, I'm going to be there every Saturday, rain or shine or snow, and you start to have conversations and you start to get to know their names. And they say, listen, do you want to get a haircut? Did you do this? Why don't you come Monday and we'll get you a birth certificate? And then they come Monday and I show up and I'm consistent, then I'll build those relationships. And then they'll say, well, I haven't stayed in here. Can I stay in here? I get high every day. Okay, well, let's have that conversation, but I'll never have that conversation if I don't draw them in. And so I use Outreach Saturdays to do that. But like I said, I do agree that population is the problem population, but I don't want to call them criminal. I think that's just a byproduct of their problems.
Well, best possible choice. When they have no choice but to do what they're doing, they're not going to do anything better.
Right. And I think if
When they're given the choice like you're doing, then they'll do better.
right. And I think what happens too is that a lot of people think, well, just make it miserable, bulldoze this and bulldoze that and make it horrible for them to stay here. And then you'll drive them out. You're never going to drive them out. They are the most resilient people you will ever see. They will adapt and they'll just start moving around and you'll see them in more places and more areas instead of concentrated in little tiny pockets.
Councilor Flores, did you have a question?
Yes. I think the solution is to have 3 more of you and 3 more centers like you.
I wish.
I'm really impressed.
From your lips to God's ears.
And it really leads me to my question, and it's trying to get our arms around how many people we're really talking about in a normal period here in Pueblo. Has there been any kind of demographic and numbers that we can point to about how many people really need help? And it's so elusive, especially in the winter. We scramble around to make sure that we have enough warming shelters.
Right.
And, I don't know if that would help, because if you don't know how many people we're talking about here, it's really difficult sometimes for us to kind of budget, the money. What's ironic too in our community is that our entire budget for the city of Pueblo is around 130 million. And almost half of that goes just to public safety, our policemen, our firemen, and all of that. But when you look at the amount of money that is out there in mental health, it dwarfs us probably 20 to 1. If you include the Colorado Mental Health Institute and all of the nonprofits that we have in town, their budgets are just huge. And I really believe that that's where part of the solution should come from.
I do too.
We don't have the resources at the city
Right.
to deal with this.
The city shouldn't be in the homelessness business.
I don't think so either, but we're a captive audience here, so we're going to be. But is there any kind of numbers that we could look at? Is there a way that a community can look at the demographics and kind of start looking at this population to actually focus in helping them directly without them just showing up at your doorstep?
I know HMIS tracks a lot of data and information in terms of mental illness and disabilities. And that might be a good resource to look and see specifically. The problem is that HMIS is a self-reporting tool. So let's just say I have somebody in my shelter and I'm doing an intake and I can tell they are visibly have a mental illness, and they tell me they have a diagnosis, but they don't believe it. It's not really true. And I ask them for reporting purposes, are you mentally ill? And they say no, then the answer is no. I can't just report my own opinion. So HMIS might be a good tool to give you at least a roundabout idea or a number. I was doing some research for NAMI, and I'll get the numbers and I'll email them to all of you about how they figure out in a state how many inpatient psychiatric beds based on per capita each state needs in order to meet the mental illness demands of its state. And we are like 48th or 49th of all the states. We have a horrible amount of inpatient psychiatric beds, but I'll get that data to you guys and I'll email it to you. But HMIS, like I said, might be a tool. Health Solutions is a huge provider for mental health here, and so is Gateway to Success. They might be other resources to reach out to and say, tell us about your population. But it's probably going to be like everything else, a collaborative effort. You know, it's multi-pronged. A bunch of people are going to need to weigh in on what those numbers might be.
Didn't we fund, was it you? I think Alex came in and we funded like a head counter program, like something that kept the data for people who came in, whether they had a driver's license, a birth certificate, what their needs were. I remember giving like $100,000 earlier last year for something like that. You don't remember that? Okay. So recently we were given some paperwork prior to the meeting, and recently you have applied for $3,148,088 in funding.
Through the transformational housing grant, is that what you're referring to? Yes.
And when do you hear on that?
I think it's all in pieces. And so I think the capital portions of that probably won't be maybe summer, maybe after. But I think the one piece of it that we wrote for, which is for kind of like program augmentation for dog kennels to shelter some individuals who otherwise wouldn't be able to shelter because they have pets, and outside lockers. Those are all part of a program augmentation. And I'm going to say, I think I got a letter from DOLA last week that we have all of these applications and we're reviewing them, but they've pushed the timeline back. So I'm going to say probably end of May, I'm going to say.
So your match is going to be about $367,000.
I believe so.
Where are you going to get that money?
At this point, I'm not really sure. I haven't worked with DOLA extensively before, and so I need to find out, I guess, really what we're talking about when you talk about a match, where it can come from. I know there are a lot of grants that are out there that matches can actually be even taken from volunteers. You can use volunteer hours to match. We have a tremendous amount of volunteer hours, not $300,000 worth, but it's probably going to be a patchwork quilt of matching.
How do you normally sustain yourself?
We are funded from county and city funds, CSAC, ESG funds, some private foundations, and then local churches and private donations. But I would say the bulk, we are heavily reliant and need city and county funding. CDBG and CSAC, those are all funding sources that we rely on heavily. We're trying to move away from that and get more foundational funding. The problem is that most foundations and grants don't want to fund a homeless shelter. They just kind of see it as a Band-Aid. It doesn't really make anybody's lives better, which is kind of the other reason why I expanded and started going into more programs, because they do want to fund programs. They want to, and ours just started this last May. So our data is, trickling in and we're seeing that it's successful, but I'd love to move to more foundational funding and not be reliant on city and county government funding, but we're just not there yet.
Because you've had to close down at times because you're lacking in funds, correct?
We haven't closed down. What we've had to do is reduce our capacity for how many people we could bring in based on how much staff we had in the shelter. So if I've got 60 people in the program and I have 20 people that want to come in that night, and I only have 2 staff members and one has called off, I'm not likely to bring in additional outside clients if I've only got 1 female working. Staffing has been a huge struggle. I know I'm not alone. I know everybody around the country is enduring those kinds of things. So I've tried to make it more enticing, trying to raise the wages that we pay. You know, we're a nonprofit. We don't offer holidays or PTO or any of that. And I can't be in the business of lifting people out of poverty and pay my staff poverty wages where they earn more working at Sonic. So we've stepped that up. And I think now we're at 15 or 16. I think we need to be at 19. So we're close, but definitely kind of limited who we could take in for capacity. We've never closed, but we have had to limit capacity based on who have got staffing to be able to bring people in.
What are some of your fundraising ideas to keep your program sustainable?
Just in this last year in October, we started a quarterly newsletter, and that quarterly newsletter is like a little 4-page color newsletter that tells everybody what's going on with the shelter. It does make an ask, tells everybody what's going on and what we need. We have an event coming up on May 6th. It's called the Great Pueblo Sleep Out. We did this last year, but I was new in my role and we had a lot of things I was trying to do, so I couldn't really get it off the ground. CSU Pueblo is going to allow us to use their campus. So on May 6th, we're going to be doing a fundraiser where everybody comes in one location, probably the stadium, and sleeps outside for a night in solidarity with people who have to do it every night. The fundraiser will include those who are sleeping out at night will secure donations or pledges from other people for every hour that they sleep out. Last year, we also participated in the Chili Fest. My residents said, you know, we want to sell something. And so they decided they were going to invent a chili infused lemonade. And they did that. And we sold lemonade to huge lines that weekend. And so we'll probably do that again. So I know we can't do a gala. I know that's just not who Pueblo is. And I don't think that it makes any sense. And so I'm trying to stick to things that I think educate and will also provide extra funds and added funds for us. So I'm hoping the Great Pueblo Sleep Out turns out to be a great event and we can continue to do it every year. But that's kind of where we are with fundraising ideas right now.
And what do you expect to raise? How much funds do you expect to raise through fundraising?
Well, I'm hoping between our Chili Fest lemonade that we do and between the newsletters and the Great Pueblo Sleep Out, I'm hoping that we'll be able to generate anywhere from $25,000 to $75,000, maybe more. I know that the quarterly newsletters produce a pretty good result for us. We've only done the first quarter. We're just now coming into our second quarter, but it's been beneficial and helpful. I also do some faith-based visits. I usually will do a video and do some educational stuff and go out and speak with the churches and make asks of them for different needs.
And what is your plan?
Get everybody else before you continue. Councilor Martinez.
Melanie, thanks so much for being here and thank you for the mission for what you all do. It was really moving to hear the different testimonies earlier today of the direct clients that you have. So very moving. I know that we had a conversation in the winter time when the mission was struggling financially. And I know that one of the biggest priorities was to get a grant writer.
Yes.
How is that going?
We have a contract grant writer that we're working with right now. I know in the grant for the transformational housing, there is funding in there for a community development director who would then be the grant writer and also do fundraising. And that role would be sustained by the grant for 18 months. And then the expectation would be that that person would be self-sustaining and just be able to continue to move the mission forward. So we have a contract grant writer that we're working with right now. I would like to have one on staff. I just don't have the bandwidth yet. We're not able. So I'm still writing some, and we have a contract grant writer that is writing some, and we're just going to take it from there until we see what happens with this transformational grant to see if we get funding for a full-time person to be able to take that on.
Great. Just because, I know that you rely on city and county funds and CBDG funds, but I really think that fundraising in-house and grant writing is going to be crucial for your operations and sustainability.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Springs mission and their model that they have up there?
I know that they have a a similar situation as I have. They call their program the Hope. So they've got several buildings. So they've got a building for a transient shelter. You just come in, you get a bed, you get nothing else. And then they have their Hope program. And then they have an even more advanced program that they use once you're stable and in a job and you're in there for a year, and you actually pay a ministry fee to stay there. You'll pay a rent in order to be in the final stages of that program. So they also rely really heavily, and I'm looking into that, on social enterprise. They have an amazing commercial kitchen, and they have a company that's a social enterprise out of that mission called Mission Catering. And last year they made over $500,000 in profits from catering events and parties and things throughout Colorado Springs and Denver. And they also use that kitchen to train residents and have a culinary program. So that's their social enterprise. We obviously couldn't do that. We have a very small kitchen, but there are other kinds of social enterprises that shelters enter into and start all the time. I just went last week to Las Vegas and toured the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. Their social enterprise is a thrift store, and it does amazing. And, they employ residents. It's a retail teaching experience, but it also is a way to bring in funds and stabilize their funding. So looking into that too.
Councilor Weiner, do you have anything?
I do. Thank you very much. So I know the state is in conversation right now about working on an M1 mental health 72-hour stay. And I'm glad you brought up the fact of mental illness, because it's not illegal to be mentally ill. So or you have the right to be mentally ill. So folks that are really unable to take care of themselves, we have a hard time helping them, because like you said before, if they say they're not mentally ill, then we as a society are just allowing these folks to live in squalor or live like wild animals. And that's not right either. So I know the state is now working on trying to change some laws with that M1 72-hour mental hold. Also, I don't know if anybody's aware, but in November of 22, the vaccine for opiates was approved for human clinical trials. They've been highly successful in animal trials, so hopefully we'll have some of that on the market here real soon for folks. I think that'll be another big step. So I just wanted to point out there's this huge effort nationally as well as other cities. As Jeff Shaw mentioned, this is going on everywhere. Regina, I also remember putting a bunch of money forward for counting, and there is numbers will be out in a couple months. That is, let me pull it up here. That is the point-in-time housing inventory by the Colorado Coalition. And that showed on a statewide, at point in time, only 250 at that point in time wanted help, and 14 in Pueblo wanted help. So it is a very small amount that are actually seeking housing. And when I want to say seeking housing as opposed to homeless. There's a difference between being homeless and seeking housing, or being unsheltered and choosing that kind of lifestyle because you're mentally ill. And as you mentioned, a lot of mental illness has a lot of addiction issues. Also, you were talking about your fundraising. The county has not funded you because of administering the emergency service grants correctly. Can you tell me what's going on with that?
The county funded us in November of last year for emergency services for our shelter operations. Since I've been there, that's the first time they've done that. I don't know. I know that the county's funded before, but I don't think they funded on an emergency services basis. In the end of October, early November, our funding stream was trickling, and we were really struggling. And so they stepped in with $50,000 to support the shelter through general operations.
Mm-hmm. So there wasn't any administrative issues with that?
No,
Okay. And then also, it appears that you missed your deadline with the United Way funding.
yes, we had EFSP was a funding source that we've used before. And I had the deadline set and had the application complete and submitted the application about 4 hours late. So we were not able to qualify for ESP funding, and we'll have to wait probably until the summer when they offer funding again.
Okay.
I
Can you
think
comment?
the problem is that I'm wearing a lot of hats. And so I'm working with a contract grant writer who has other clients as well. And I know she's juggling all of us, and I'm trying to pick up the slack and do some of the things that an executive director typically wouldn't be doing. And sometimes stuff just falls through the cracks. That was one of those things.
Right, right. So what about documentation and data? Are you having issues with that?
No, we use two different sources. We use HMIS, and we use another program called Mission Tracker, which is a cloud-based software that we use in-house to manage mostly the resident program. But we use both HMIS and Mission Tracker, and HMIS is exportable and importable back and forth. So the two pieces of software speak to each other. So our data is good.
Okay. Can you comment a little bit on this M1? Do you know anything about the state working on that, where they're trying to allow police officers and a social worker to actually admit someone that's in a mental health crisis to a 72-hour hold?
I don't know very much about it, but I do know in Colorado Springs, they use a mental health kind of team. They're still police officers, but they're designated for mental health crisis. I'm not sure who all is employed on those teams, but I know they're using it and it's successful. I do think it does probably need to be modified. Again, that's a slippery slope. You know, you're talking about people's constitutional rights. And part of the reason why we have all these problems now is because people were institutionalized back in the 60s and 70s against their will, treated horribly, and not given any kind of say in their own mental health.
And that was mostly women actually getting admitted by their husbands. So
Right.
I think the problem is that the pendulum is swung clear in the other way, where we're to the point now. I think it was last year, the university, I forget where it was. I probably shouldn't bring it up, but there was a university where there was a mass shooting, and the social worker on campus had reported this particular student as talking about murdering people. But since that individual didn't specify who he was going to murder, they couldn't do anything about it. But if he would have said, I'm going to commit suicide, then you can put him in a 72-hour hold. So the laws really need to change. And I know the state's trying to work on that.
I agree.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. All right. Hey, thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Melanie, I just have one question. Would it help the mission? Would it help the city if the mission had more space and more bed? I mean, 95 beds for 100,000 people just doesn't seem sustainable.
We're kind of cramped in there. Bigger space would obviously be better. I know that they were in a real crunch and they put that mission together and renovated it really quickly. You know, we have a dorm of 60 men's beds, and there are 2 outlets in that whole room. So if I have 2 residents, and I do right now, who are on oxygen concentrators and need those, you know, for oxygen and to sleep at night, and the hospital or someone calls me and has a client. In fact, we had a lady come in her van from the Motel 6 kicking out 2 residents, a husband and a wife and their 3 dogs, because they couldn't pay their bill at the motel, and they both were on oxygen concentrators. And I couldn't take him because I don't have the outlets. So there are a lot of places where we're kind of busting at the seams, and yeah, it would be nice to have, you know, more resources and more places to bring people in. Like I said, we're always going to have that service resistant population, but the only way I'm ever going to get them to come in and even consider the idea of wanting something more is to get them in the door as an emergency services client. And, you know, I've got 30 some odd bunks left right now and about 18 spaces on the floor. And then after that, I'm full.
Thank you. Counselor Tencio?
Yep.
You know,
Larry, I don't think your mic is on. I can't hear you at all.
I'm sorry. How do we support our businesses? I mean, I'm in complete support of every organization that helps the unhoused. And I definitely am not in support of any laws that criminalize them. But if we don't have a vibrant business community, it's going to get even worse.
Right.
Because the people that they employ are going to end up homeless. And the cycle continues.
Right.
What would we say to our business community?
I really think that the concept I was talking about that Colorado Springs uses for its police force, having those mental health teams, still a police force, but going out with mental health individuals, social workers, treatment clinicians that go out there. I think that's probably going to be a huge step. You obviously you can't criminalize them. They can't pay their fines. You don't have the space in the jails for them. They're taking up time for dispatch calls that are needed elsewhere. I think you need a dedicated mental health team within your police department to navigate those issues. Just like you have a SWAT team. If somebody, goes into a huge crisis issue, you call in your crisis team, you call in your hostage negotiator. I think you need a crisis team for the mental illness and the addiction that's people are experiencing here. It's not enough just to say, can you come out here and get this guy off my front steps so my business can open?
So you would encourage businesses whenever they have an issue with
I think there should be a place that you could, a different
could
number. Maybe
call.
there's a mental health dispatch line for the police and say, listen, this person is walking around talking to themselves. They're throwing things. They're defecating on my front porch. I just, I really need someone to come out and support. That's a mental health issue and a substance use issue. I get it. It's a criminal issue because it's against the law to do that, but that's not the first thing we have to address.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for coming
Thank you.
tonight. And thank you, everybody from the mission for also coming and speaking. Oh, Ms. Solano, did you have something to add?
I did, thank you. And I was just going to augment what Executive Director has added, and that is just, I think she might have misheard the words of the grant. The document that I sent all of you last week, the $2 million is actually to stand up the STAR program, which is that mental health response unit, but Health Solutions will speak about that next. So $2 million out of that you referenced is not a grant for the Pueblo Rescue Mission. It is for in partnership with Health Solutions, but it is a municipal eligible grant. So in collaboration with Health Solutions, that grant is not due until 5/1. So it's in process of being developed as they move forward. And secondly, on that same document, the build out of some additional space at that current site is a city grant, as the city owns the land currently where the council approved the buying of the small building. And in speaking with DOLA, the right timing to fill out that grant application, since it was city-owned property, they were recommending that the city submit the grant since they were the landowner at the time, because they feel like the funds are going to go quickly and didn't want Pueblo to lose out on that grant application. So the Pueblo Rescue Mission's operational grant that we should hear as early as May is the $598,000 with $149,000 match. And underneath the source for that match, you see the CSLFR, which is really ARPA dollars, that if we were successful, it would be the mayor's position to support and request and recommend to city council that match be out of the city's ARPA funds to help the unhoused. And so that helped a little bit there. On the HMIS front, Brian Gallagher has asked for and secured HMIS data from the state. And if you'd like more information in a work session from Brian in our housing department, he can provide the HMIS information. And then lastly, the point in time count. Health Solutions is up next, and Tia Miller coordinates that for the continuum of care. So she'll have more information on the report expected due dates from the point in time count that just happened. And those were the additionals.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And then did you just want to give a quick shout out about your summit?
Yeah, I forgot. We are hosting a community summit on homelessness for anybody who wants to come and has frustrations and concerns and questions and possible solutions. So on April 20th at Union Depot, we're going to be hosting a summit from 4 to 6 p.m. Going to include some roundtable discussion and try to get some some of this multi-pronged problem resolved and have some presentations. We're going to have some lived experiences. We're going to do this kind of roundtable like speed dating event. We're going to have some of our emergency service clients and our residents come and sit at each table at the round tables and just let everybody fire away questions about their circumstances, how they got there, what do they think they need, what would have helped, what did they not get that they could have used, just to kind of get feedback about how to really help this population. So that'll be April 20th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Union Depot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Health Solutions, Heather Hawkins and Tia Miller.
Thank you, Madam President and Council. I'm Heather Hankins. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Clinical Officer for Health Solutions.
And I'm Tia Miller. I'm the Vice President for Specialty Services at Health Solutions.
We are, as many of you know, Community Mental Health Center for Pueblo, Huerfano, and Los Animas counties. We're also an integrated healthcare system offering a variety of services. We serve over 13,000 people a year. Some of the services that we provide are on the screen now. That includes skills and vocational training, substance use treatment, medication-assisted treatment, primary care services, integrated healthcare coordination, individual and group therapy, case management, housing specialist. We really have a variety of services from A to Z. Go to the next slide. I thought it might be helpful to see the number of unhoused individuals we've served over the last year and 3 months. We have served 382 unhoused individuals. Here's some demographics that kind of shows you the breakdown. Primarily male. Our age group is very large. This is the data that we collect, however, 18 to 64, with a little bit being over 65. And there were actually about 3 within this grouping of data that was at under 17. Some more demographics, those that are unemployed, 104 disabled, some part-time, some full-time, students, retired, just kind of all across the board. And then demographics as far as American Indian, Hispanic, Latino, and again, that's across the board as well. Some of our immediate services that we have available that's used often are our crisis intervention team. That's our co-responder program that we partner with PD, and we do have licensed and master level clinicians, case managers that accompany PD and go on to calls that they feel would be useful to have a mental health clinician there. It's a little different than what was mentioned earlier, and I'll get into that with the next grant that we're looking at. We also have a mobile early intervention services team. That team is really before you get to crisis. So if things are escalating or they just need help, they can contact, and our mobile early intervention services can help. And then we have a crisis living room, and really that's their identified crisis. It's open 24/7. We have peers there, EMTs, clinicians, and they can have an assessment done 24/7 walk-in. We also have mobile crisis. So crisis clinicians can be dispatched to the community to do assessments and identify level of care if that's needed, if they need to be hospitalized, if it's just kind of situational and we can help them through case management or a safety plan, that will happen there. Some of the housing resources, I will turn to our expert.
All those programs that Heather mentioned, any of those professionals can complete what's called a VI-SPDAT, the same thing that Melanie spoke of, which is our entry point into any of our housing resources in our community. We work with other housing resources in our community. That's what the slide's representing, different access points across the city. Any of these community veteran providers or domestic violence victim serving providers can also do the VI-SPDAT.
And so if they are encountering somebody who has some experience with unhoused circumstances, they can do the VI SPDAT and refer them into our coordinated entry system. Coordinated entry is a method for assessing and identifying the most vulnerable of our unhoused citizens. And through that process of coordinated entry, we match them with a housing resource. We know that housing resources are very limited, and we want to be able to match the right person to the right housing resource so they can have the highest chance for success in maintaining that housing. Through that process of coordinated entry, we staff every person on the by name list every week, case conference their needs, barriers, and what kind of access they need to housing. And then if a housing resource becomes available, that housing provider provides that information to coordinated entry, and then they match them with the appropriate person to match that resource. It is a method to triage and screen to people getting into housing as quickly as possible. Through that process, we have navigation support. We work with multiple community partners. Posada has a housing navigator. So if someone is matched to a housing resource, it can be challenging for that person to lease up. There's a lot of paperwork that's required. Most application processes require IDs, various birth certificates, and proof of income or lack of income. And the housing navigator, Posada, can work with that person and work directly with the landlord to make sure they get that paperwork. Our goal is to make sure any episode of unhoused that we can address it quickly and rapidly and get them back into housing. Melanie also mentioned the HMIS system. We use HMIS for our case conferencing. So everybody that's entered in through the VI SPDAT housing assessment tool throughout the city gets placed into this HMIS by names list data tracking system. And we can track them through that process of getting them housed as quickly as possible.
One of the questions that was asked are, what are our plans for moving forward? So we do offer, as you see, a variety of services. We have services available. We have open access. Individuals can access those Monday through Friday to get enrolled in services. And we have crisis services again, 24/7. So we'll continue with those lines of service, continue collaboration with the community, the city, and really developing what should be and can be the solution. And it is a multifaceted approach to solving the unhoused issue now. It's not a one size fits all, if you might say. Let me find. We are applying for many startup grants. The Behavioral Health Administration through the state and ARPA funds has a number of grants out. And yes, if you are a grant writer, you are not unemployed at this time. They are being used throughout all of our city and all of our services. So we do have some applications in, and we are working, as Laura mentioned, on an application that will partner with the municipal PD. Our FQHC, PCHC is also supportive and will be involved. The high priority is funding. So Medicaid is not the answer. Medicaid dollars does not serve a lot of these individuals because it is outreach. It is trying to get them into services. It's not billable services. So that is an important part of the conversation as we're moving forward, is what does that funding look like? Increased affordable housing and low barrier housing. We can provide all the services we want, give medications, give injections, but at the end of the day, if they don't have a place to go, it could be fruitless. As Velma Campbell mentioned earlier, Maslow hierarchy of needs, home, food, kind of your general resources are required first before you can work on substance use, mental health, things like that. So it's really us all coming together and serving in a multitude of areas. Prevention strategies, right? Like financial counseling, rental assistance, preventing homelessness in the first place. With the economy and things like that, people are just one paycheck away from being in the same situations. So providing financial counseling and helping support to prevent these from happening in the first place. Job training, opportunities, are important and address the root cause of homelessness in the first place. I think it'll take collaboration between all of us to really do justice for our unhoused population. The grant that we've referred to a couple times is being referred to as the Familia Response Team. And that means fostering a meaningful impact on lives and increasing assistance. This would be similar to the Denver Star program, where we would be dispatched through PD. They would identify that an officer does not need to respond to the situation, that it does appear to be mental health or resources that are needed. So an officer would not dispatch to this particular call. We would have mental health on board, EMT, case manager, peer. And this is one of the areas that we're working with our FQHC also to provide these services at their unhoused clinic that they currently have and possibly expand those hours. We're collecting data now and seeing how many calls this would apply to. This would be separate from our current co-responder program and our current CIT program. The current co-responder and CIT program is when an officer responds and we respond with them.
Questions? Thank you. Counselor Martinez?
Yeah, that was a lot of information. So thank you for all of that. I'm curious about, so the mobile units, and that's going to be hopefully linked to 988. Can you tell us a little bit more about like where that is right now in the process?
So that's our crisis mobile team, and it's already, we can be dispatched through 988. So we can be a self-dispatch, meaning a community member calls our crisis line directly, and that's called a self-dispatch. Or we could be dispatched through the state crisis line, the 988 number.
And I know that a couple months ago, we spoke about how that's going to be fully rolled out in June, the 988, because there are still some issues with like the whole area code and dispatch. So is that fixed yet, or do you know?
I actually don't know for sure if that's been fixed yet, but the geo mapping, a geolocation service through the 988 was an issue, and I think it can still remain an issue, but I don't know for sure if it's been resolved. I can find out. But that becomes an issue if they can't verbalize where they're located, but if they can say where they're located, it's not necessarily a barrier. But the geolocation is a barrier from the 988 calls at last I heard.
Okay, perhaps when it gets closer to June, we can invite 988 folks to a work session to find out more about that for 988. And I think that the Denver Star program is fantastic, and I'm very, very, very excited and optimistic and hopeful that when we receive the funds for the grant, we'll implement it. We'll see tremendous change. So thank you for partnering with us on that.
Any other questions for Health Solutions?
Yeah, I have, sorry, go ahead.
Counselor Atencio, then Counselor Winter.
Yeah, how many clinicians or how many people are going to be going out with the police department, caseworkers? I forget what you call
Great
them.
question. So we're hoping to have 2 teams. It won't be a 24/7 service. It will be though a 7-day-a-week service. So the 2 teams would cover all of those days.
Will that be enough?
It's a great place to start.
Hopefully it'll be enough.
Yes, I hope
Yeah.
so.
If not, then do we plan on getting more? Because what I'm hearing is the unhoused, for the majority of them, they're not the problem. The problem are the ones that with mental health issues that are doing things that violence and all this other stuff. Those are the problem people, because just because you're unhoused doesn't mean that you're a problem. Might be to some people, but I'm sure.
And just because you're unhoused doesn't mean you have a mental illness per
True,
se.
True. but-
And so there is a treatment resistant population, and we can put services out there and try to reach all we can and take services to different populations so they don't have to just come to our centers, and build up that trust with them so that we're taking our services, medical services to them, and hopefully
How
building
do-
that trust and
How do we
getting them in
encourage the
service.
business community to access these services? Because what I'm hearing from them, I mean, there were only a few of them here tonight, but I keep hearing it all the time. And for some reason, we're just going, yeah. We want to concentrate on helping everybody, and which is fine. Like I said, I support everybody, but how do we support our business community? How do we inform them as to what they're supposed to do, or what they could do to solve some of these problems?
I think, again, I think it's multifaceted. I think we can provide services. Our number is the same. It will get you to crisis services. Hopefully dispatch will soon get you to this new program, Familia, that we're wanting to launch. I think it is all of us working together, and I do empathize with our small business owners, because I do think that that's important to have, and we want to build up our economy in our city and our community, and we want to do that together. So I don't think we have all the answers, but we certainly have services and are providing those, and looking for more opportunities and ideas and partnerships to meet those needs. So.
Counselor Winter?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if either one of them have heard about the state working on this M1 mental 72-hour mental health hold, because I mean, if you're, just like the presentation on the rescue mission, if somebody is doing drugs and they're disruptive, and I'm sure the same thing happens at your facility, that's somebody that definitely needs more help than you're willing to provide. So the mission has to release those people that go right back to camps. And I mean, what do you do in a case like that? Or when somebody's scholarship has expired or somebody's insurance is not paying anymore, yet they still need help?
Well, we do have case managers. We do have people that will help them connect with resources as much as possible. We do have an issue with, as she mentioned earlier, access to beds across the state. So when they do meet a higher level of care and they are threatening harm to themselves or others, even if we put them on an M1 hold, many times there's not a hospital bed to place them in. So that is a true story that she mentioned earlier, that we are really lacking beds. The state, as part of the Behavioral Health Transformational Task Force, has dedicated more beds to be opened across the state, but then you get into workforce issues as well, staffing those beds. The CMHIP has been partnering with ideas on how to move forward, but that is not a resource like we used to have, where we'd have so many beds there that we could take individuals to get the proper treatment. It's across the state, it's a state issue, and really across the nation in many cases. But if we don't have a place to take them, that makes it difficult. And so.
So then they're just back out on the street again, down by the river, doing drugs.
Could be.
So I mean, it's just a circular thing, guys. I mean, I remember during the George W. administration, they said that we need to work on housing first and addiction later. And as the rescue mission just stated, really housing doesn't work if you're addicted. So, I mean, that's a circular conversation that's been going on for years. When I worked in the ER, we used to have mental health patients stuck in the ER for days until there was some rooms available in the 72-hour hold or in the mental health evaluation or the psych unit. So it's not like all this happened yesterday. It just seems like we've created duplications of services everywhere and really didn't focus on what really needs to happen throughout the country, not just Pueblo.
Well, we have expanded services. When we see a need in the community, we have responded in multiple different ways, including we have a respite 8-bed service for individuals that are either being discharged from hospitals and not quite ready, or don't have housing available, or maybe they're going to an ACF. That helps us stabilize them and get their resources in place. We've tried to respond in many different ways, including our medication-assisted treatment, our integrated healthcare system. Our co-responder program has been a great resource. So I would say that there's a lot of great things happening and we are meeting a lot of the needs of these folks and there is still a lot of room for improvement. And I think the drug epidemic is very large and growing across our nation. And it again takes all of us together. And I would say that housing is very important, and folks that are housed and going through services, they have a much higher chance of being successful than if they don't have those basic resources.
Mhm. You know, when I worked in hospice, I worked in the field, and there were folks, you know, that were homeless that we put up in motels, and those were really people like we're talking about, like the rescue mission was talking about. I mean, these were folks that had lost literally all of their resources, family, friends, and even their housing vouchers because they destroyed properties. So they were just really living like animals and dying. So we had to move them into hotels in order to care for them. But it's just sad that that's what has to happen for them to even live halfway decently, because a lot of these folks just cannot take care of themselves, and we're not doing anything about it. That's all I have.
Counselor Flores.
You still have the Chinook location, which is an acute treatment center. So you have beds now.
We do.
I think it's 18 beds.
We
Is it
have-
that large?
It's
15.
15.
15, okay. And how, as I recollect, the police department, if they found somebody that was in crisis, that would be the location they would take. If someone was having a mental breakdown or some sort of a crisis, they would take them to your place. And do you need their permission to keep them there for 24 hours, or how does that work?
The crisis used to be located right in front of the ATU and kind of that front section, and now it's just 2 doors down. We've enlarged it in the crisis living room. So it depends on medical necessity. If they meet medical necessity and or they can be voluntary, or they can be on an M1 hold and we can put them into our ATU. Our ATU has been pretty full over the last year for sure. It kind of waxes and wanes. It can't be a hospital level of care. So if they have, you know, severe medical needs or are on oxygen, things like that, that needs a hospital level, we can't take them. But if it's one step lower, our ATU is an acute treatment unit, and certainly.
Is this an area where a young person who has tried committing suicide would be taken to?
Crisis?
18 and above. Crisis can take everybody regardless of age, payer source, everything. Yes. The ATU specifically is 18 and older.
Okay, and you have another place for younger people?
We would transport them to an accepting facility anywhere in the state that will take them.
And then my last question has to do with your, one of your areas is skills and vocational training. What kind of vocational training are you guys providing, and where is that?
So that is located at our Montebello location, the 41 Montebello location. And we have vocational programs that's either embedded in, it could be an adjunct service, meaning somebody is open to another outpatient program at Health Solutions. And then they also want to work on vocational skills training. And so they would be connected to that outpatient treatment plan. So to do our vocational or career skill-based courses, they do need to be opened in one of our outpatient programs.
We've had a lot of success with that program. We've employed, do you remember the numbers?
I
over the
don't
last
remember
year?
the numbers.
We've had a lot of success with that program for those involved.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Did you say that you don't have access, or these clients don't have access to indigent and Medicaid funding?
No, Medicaid funding just you can only bill so many things for Medicaid. So if you're out on the streets outreaching, there's not really a code for that, and there's not funding for that. So this team that goes out and is outreaching and trying to build these relationships, if you're not working with somebody specifically, or sometimes people will, not give you their real name or not give you their real information, may not have Medicaid, but those are people that we really want to support and build trust and provide those resources. So until we have that trust or we can get to that point, those are not billable resources. So Medicaid funding, a lot of times we go back to that's where the funds come from, and that's not sustainable in all cases. Specifically, like cases like this.
How does it affect your program?
Well, this outreach program will be new. We do have current programs in place, like our ACT program, which is really intensive case management for individuals that may have been homeless prior to or would be homeless if we weren't providing wraparound services, case management, helping them just manage all of their needs, getting them to appointments, making sure that they're getting their paperwork in. Medicaid is doing a large shift now that the PHE is over. And so anybody that hasn't renewed is at risk for coming off of Medicaid. So we've been really proactive in making sure that people are answering their mail, responding to that, and updating the state with all of their current demographics so that they don't get dropped from Medicaid.
And what drug recovery services are you offering, and how are those funded?
So we have our Crestone program, which is an outpatient substance abuse and use treatment program, and intensive outpatient, where it's many hours a day that they can come and receive services. We also have a medication assisted treatment program that has the variety of Suboxone, Vivitrol, Methadone that individuals can come into treatment, get induced the same day. And that has been a great program to serve those that have had intense addictions. And then from there, we wrap around services, get them the treatment they need. And it's been successful as well. And those services are generally funded by Medicaid dollars if they have Medicaid. We also take some private pay and some private insurances with the medication assisted treatment program.
How long is that program?
It can vary. Individuals that are receiving MAT can be on MAT for life, medication assisted treatment for life. And that's okay. Some can be on it for 3-6 months and do okay staying with their recovery after that. It's really dependent upon the person and the circumstances, but we do provide the entire spectrum.
Councilor Martinez, did you have something else?
I did, thank you. So Familia is what we're going to call the STAR program. When are we expected to hear about the funding award?
The application is due May 1st, and I think we should hear by September.
And it's a really quick turnaround with spend. The funds have to be spent by December 31st of 2024. So the budget will be aggressive. And then it'll be a quick turnaround with the city being fiscal agent for the grant.
Okay, I'm just thinking similar to Councilman Atencio's comments, like I think that our community needs something now and our business community needs something now. So I'm wondering if we need to push out 988 as a resource right now to our business community who is calling us and who is emailing us of like, hey, this is happening with this person who's experiencing homelessness right now. What can we do about it? So I don't know if we need to have like a little campaign or something in the city to push that information out. I just a thought.
I was going to say that we have a public information officer, and what we should do probably is send out a letter to all of our small businesses, informing them of who they can call, when they can call, and access the services. Not only can they call the police department, but they call 988 and get the services that they need and have somebody literally removed if they have to be. I think we could do that without a problem, and it wouldn't cost a whole lot, and it would be a service. what I'm finding is we have a lot of services and we're really making great strides. I've seen this in the last year or so in terms of services for the unhoused and for mental health even, which wasn't there a couple of 2 or 3 years ago. But we need to help our businesses. And if we throw a crumb in that direction, just a letter, letting them know where to go and what to do and who to call might be a good thing.
I think that is a great idea in just giving them the resources that are out there and available. 988, it might be helpful for them to come and present on exactly what those services look like, because we wouldn't, I don't want to promise things that we can't do. So calling 988 to remove somebody that's loitering from your property, they won't be able to do it. So I do want to be clear about the services that can direct. But certainly we can help, and, you know, with the new program, looking at why are they loitering, what's happening, or the resources that they need. And then crisis, on the other hand, are they at risk to themselves, at risk to others, and how can we get them in the proper level of care?
Maybe, yeah.
And I think, I mean, I definitely acknowledge and hear that point. I think what if we like structure communication of like, if someone is loitering, if someone is trespassing, if someone's in crisis and screaming and needing help, call 988. If they are going or you know, they're threatening harm to themselves or others, call this number. But I think if we can structure it like that, that'd be
Most people don't know 988.
It's fairly new.
It's fairly
And
new,
as Tia mentioned, they are still working out some quirks, but most people can communicate where they are and what area code, zip code they're in. And so it's not a huge barrier to using that access. Agree.
Are you, I'm sorry. Are you willing to execute that before you receive any funds? Grant funding?
Meaning,
Are you willing to execute it before you receive any grant funding? Because that's what we're. Well, they're not funded for that portion of it, are they?
For the mobile crisis, yes.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, it's the Familia is the other program. If someone calls 988 and gets redirected over, that's the other program. But we have mobile crisis currently.
How often are these 988 units going out daily to the community?
so the 988 calls can come in through a variety of ways. The Colorado Crisis Line, if you've seen that advertised, that was a huge campaign. It's really the same process, the same number, the same people that answer the phone. So they'll answer the phone in Denver, and then they'll call our crisis unit in Pueblo, and then we'll respond. And then we'll enter the data back into their system. So it is just kind of an easy number for people to remember to get the crisis services in their community. And so to answer your question, how many mobile crises?
We just got the data just this afternoon. We had a meeting about the data for this last month, and it was 39 calls in this last month for Pueblo County alone. We cover 3 counties, and I don't recall the numbers off the other 3 counties, but they're smaller numbers. But it was 39 dispatches is what we call them from the crisis line for the month of February.
So that's just roughly a call a day. So are we about to bombard you if we put this out to the business community? Because for the amount of phone calls that I receive and just what I see as, you know, being a business owner, it would appear that that line would be ringing nonstop daily. So to only be receiving 1 call a day, it seems kind of superficial.
I think that's part of the communication and what that can be used for. And 988 is really crisis where they're truly a harm to themselves or others. And that can be defined in many different ways. Probably what your small business owners are defining as a crisis and harm to themselves is not what legislation or the law states is a harm. So that's been an issue for many, many years on if they're a harm to themselves or others. And so I think really clarifying what resources for what issue would be helpful. Because I'm sure you are getting many, many calls, a lot more than 1 a day. So that is something that we can can help with and providing our resources and what number you would call for what, we're happy to do that as well.
If we could get working on that as soon as possible, that would be awesome. Okay.
I have one more. I do have one more
Go ahead,
question.
Councilwoman.
Yeah, so everybody can see that I mean, the homeless and I guess I should say unsheltered, I mean, this has become a huge industry. And all of us have thrown a lot of tax money on this because, as Dennis mentioned earlier, there is so much money out there available for grants, which is taxpayers' dollars, you know, for all of this. And I think that's why we have a lot of duplication of services and in that area. I had a question for you, and that question was, with your rehab program, how many of those people are a revolving door, and how many times will you let them back in? And if they're on a Medicaid program, how long do they have to be out before they can come back in?
That is a great question. Many people, it takes an average of 7 times to come into treatment before they actually get to sobriety. So we don't turn them away. They can come back as many times as they want to. And really we individualize the plan and their care plan to their needs. So we don't ever turn them away is really the short answer.
Okay, so you see the same people over and over and over, basically.
We do see some multiple times as they're working towards their sobriety. But I wouldn't say it's the same individuals coming in consistently. We have the data on how many individuals we serve, unique individuals, and how that's changed over the years. But we don't turn anybody away and provide the services that they need or want. And especially when they're seeking services, that's really the time to provide them with every service you possibly can, because they're looking for the help and seeking the help.
So on your rehab program, how many days is that rehab program?
So it's an outpatient program.
Oh, you don't have any inpatient?
Do not.
I thought you had some inpatient programs.
We've readjusted the need in as far as our inpatient program and turned that into respite. We were able to serve more individuals that are in this population and also struggling with substance abuse and use disorder. So that was our redirection in being able to serve more individuals and provide them with the services that they need. So we work closely with Crossroads and their programming. And I think that's important as you're talking about duplicating services, is really care coordination and partnering with all of the community stakeholders so that we are providing a full array of services and really complementing each other.
Okay. And then just for those folks that always comment on all these empty buildings in town, they need to remember that this is private property. So, you know, the old Kmart stores and other big buildings that are out there, they're not owned by the city, and we can't force somebody to, a private owner to let people live in their buildings. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, one more question.
I'm so sorry. My last question isn't for Health Solutions. Thank you all for being so patient and answering all of our questions. Speaking of Crossroads, it just like in my mind, I know that Crossroads came to us for ARPA funding. I'm curious about where that is right now in the process.
Yes, Council Martinez, we just spoke about it earlier today with the city attorney being back from a week of vacation. He'll get the information to confirm compliance with ARPA and in return with any questions or follow-up. And Mr. Davis reached out to ask the same question earlier today. So I will let him know the same.
Thank you. And thank you, Health Solutions. Next up, we have Team Up to Clean Up. Our Director of Parks, Stephen Meyer, and our Trash Removal Coordinator, Barbara Alphen.
All right, good evening. I have Barb Alphen here with us tonight. She's a trash removal coordinator. Myself, Stephen Meyer, the Director of Parks. We'll be talking to you a little bit about the new trash removal program that ARPA funded. And in partnership with Team Up to Clean Up. That's our logos that we'll be putting on the side of the trucks.
On our t-shirts.
T-shirts.
And on our vests.
Yes. So what kind of started this was a while back, decided to put $1 million into cleaning up trash in the community. We organized it through the Parks Department, and our goal was to begin building and strong and healthy communities by removing the trash, garbage, and debris that we find in the neighborhoods, and mostly in the qualified census tract areas of the city, kind of mainly focus on drainage ways, river corridors, right of ways, and other public city areas. So far today, we've hired 1 full-time trash removal coordinator, that's Barb, and 8 to 10 temporary part-time workers that she tracks around throughout town and cleans up trash. Another goal was to hire homeless individuals to come in and keep them working during the day, and that'll be done through a day labor staffing service that we'll try to contract with. We just received RFPs proposals last week, and so we're in the process of reviewing them and evaluating them. We purchased a dump trailer. We ordered 3 pickup trucks, and I just got word today that 2 of the pickups should be here in the next week to 2 weeks, and then the 3rd truck still waiting on a chip. So the trash truck, and then it'll be here in the fall. Trash summary to date, the overall the overall span of days we've been out there working is 20 days. Barb's and her crews picked up 13 tons of trash, 146 tires, 1,816 needles, 89 shopping carts. And so that is of last Wednesday when I turned the slideshow in. So yeah, I'm sure it's grown in the
It's
last.
gotten much worse.
Gotten much worse in the past week. I'm gonna have Barb kind of go through some slides of pictures of what trash she's cleaning up. Now you gotta understand, this is not just homeless trash. This is also people out there dumping trash blowing around that she's finding on some of these public right of ways. So
So actually 12th and Amarillo was an end of street illegal dump. It was 2 trailer loads. We had to go back and forth to the dump. Westbound Highway 50 bypass, it took us about 5 days. We went westbound, we went eastbound, and within one of those days, we found 3 homeless camps on the road, on the highway. We go down to 26th and Dillon where there's a continuous issue down there. So we go down there when it's cold, windy. We can't really pick up anything small with our grabbers because we're out with our grabbers. So if we can't pick up things with our grabbers, we'll go down to 26th and Dillon where we know we'll find carts, tires, sofas, mattresses, all kinds of furniture, you name it. So when it's a bad weather day, that's where we go so that we can get some good stuff. This one is we went from 4th and Erie to 1st and Erie. As you can see, I mean, this was a mattress, there was a dresser, there was all kinds of furniture out there. Plus, on the other side, it's all the blown in trash and garbage as well. So when we get done, it looks spectacular. So this one is Pride Park. So it's not exactly at the park. It's an easement that's adjacent to the park. And it was just absolutely trashed. There was a couple of homeless camps. There was a couple of, one place that they had built a shelter for cats, and they took a dresser and took it apart and made it for cats. But we, like I said, when we get done, it looks like you could eat off of it. And that's the clean pictures. That was one of our very first cleanups that we did when I had my full crew.
This is no right of way next between the park and the railroad tracks. So it's no street right of way that was never built as a street. It's just city land.
Okay. And then we have Benedict Park. As you may know, Benedict Park is a really high park for drugs, homeless camps. Right below it is a whole lot of homeless camps. We're not going down there, but they bring it all up, they bring it up to the park. So we try to keep at least the parks clean. Once a week, we'll go out and we'll hit a couple of parks that we know are bad, which is Benedict, Bessemer, and JJ Ragosa. Because the fence line on JJ Ragosa is adjacent to the highway and it's just horrible on both sides of the highway. But we don't go out onto the highway. Okay, so here, this is Fountain Creek, 26th and Fountain Creek. Once again, like I said, we find all of the big stuff when it's high wind. We can't pick up anything hardly, so that's where we go.
This is a combination of dumping trucks, contractors dumping, people just dumping beds and stuff. And then, the shopping carts course is being pushed over there.
Right.
By the homeless.
And then further up on the east side of the Fountain Creek, we have homeless camps that we've taken out over the last week or so. Actually, last week we took these ones out. They either go in ground, they're above ground. We give them 72 hours notice that we're coming in to clean them up. And they're usually generally pretty nice about it, so they'll move on and they'll just, take down their tents or whatever and take what they want. Everything else, they've been told everything else that's left behind after the 72 hours is trash. And most of it, all of it is trash. So it's really kind of sad. Then we have our needle problem. I would say today alone, I turned in over the last, between Monday, Friday, and today, I turned in over 2,000 needles that we've picked up. We have a container that we have out there that everybody throws into, because I used to have the little sharps containers, but using those, we would go through like 10 or 12 of them a day. And so we just throw them into a bucket. I take them down to Access Point. They take them from me, and it's just a really huge problem. This one pile right here, we found, I don't know, about 50 needles in one pile. It was hidden under a pizza box. You lift the pizza box and there was all these needles just right there. So today the bucket was really full, almost to the top. These are just some of our after pictures of what we've done down there. Various different places. Some of them have been up on the upper part of the trail, and some of them are down into on 26. This is my crew. So let me tell you a little bit about my crew. All of my crew come from the QCT areas. Gabriel is the oldest person we have on our team, and he is the hardest, best worker ever. I always have to tell him to come back and work with the team because he's off finding his own little areas. He is phenomenal. He used to live at the rescue mission, and he got out of the rescue mission, I want to say right after they opened the right place over there on Fort. He was one of the first recipients to get into those apartments. He keeps it clean, maintain everything. Christine, the one right there where it says team, Christine used to be the case manager there, and she was the one that got him out of there and put him into the right place. But he loves to work. I mean, he's the hardest, strongest worker you'll ever see. And everyone else, the youngest one is the girl here on the end. She's 19, but they all live within probably 10 minutes of the right place. They all live over in the QTC areas. So I've got a great team.
And that's our gingerbread house.
That's our
won the
ginger-
competition this year. Just saying.
So this map is the little green dots on there. Those are where we plan on going, our future sites. And the little red lines is where we've been. And, you know, the places we look to work at. We've got a lot.
You just beat me.
And then, do you want
And
this?
so what type of collaboration, I guess we look to you guys for is kind of some help in getting some of those areas along the river corridors closed off to vehicle traffic. So campers can't get back in there as well as people dumping. I think that's big problem. And then also help with just partnerships, you know, any kind of getting us with whether it's health department's got something going on or the rescue mission, soup kitchen, or any other cleanup efforts, just communicate with us and make sure we're part of it. That's it. That's our open up for questions.
Any questions for TM Clib? Going first, you guys duke it out.
Could you identify those areas that have to be closed off? So we can close them?
I can say 26th and Dillon,
Yeah.
because that's where it's the worst right
That's the
now.
worst, yeah.
And I've been working with Andrew, trying to see how we can get that closed off. We have some efforts going on there right now where we're working with a crew of folks that are removing a lot of the invasive plant material down there along the river. And we just started today at 47 there, and we're working south down stream. And we're removing a lot of the tamarisk and Russian olive and the fire mitigation through there. And part of those efforts was Barbara had to go in there first and clean up the areas, get the trash out of there, get the needles out of there, and make sure it was safe for that crew to come in and start cleaning up the vegetation. So it's important that we kind of close off that road access, you know, as soon as we kind of blow through that area, as we get down towards going towards the confluence, and we'll slowly close those roads off. But I think that's the biggest thing we could ask for is, you know, help that's for that sport, closing those areas off.
Cameras that were supposed to be set up in dumping areas, is that happening? I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard of them either. Hang on. I haven't heard of much use of those lately. I did talk to the health department in the last summer. We were trying to get one out on the end of a street that was for dumping, and I think they were having trouble getting it fixed or getting it up there. So I think they were having some mechanical problems with from the health department.
Okay.
Counselor Flores?
There was some discussion about a year ago where it was between CDOT and our city regarding the cleanup of I-25. Has anything come of those discussions with the state? They take the position, they build the road, and then it's the city's problem. And, you know, the speed of traffic there, we don't have the right equipment, and you know, it'd be dangerous for us to do that. Are you aware of any movement?
Slightly. I heard we actually did meet with CDOT today talking about some other stuff. And I know Andrew's talking to him about some cleanups, and I think they are planning an effort here. I want to see either April or May of doing a trash cleanup, you know, as they go down all the way along I-25 through town. But that's about all I know about it.
How many street sweepers do we have in the city?
I want to say 2, if not 3, but I think 2.
I was thinking about 2. In your opinion, if we were to break up Pueblo into 4 quadrants and we added 2 new street sweepers, would that help? I mean, you see a lot of, and it's not really, a lot of it is weeds and grass that just stays in those areas.
Yeah.
But, and I know it's difficult sometimes to clean a neighborhood because people are parking their cars everywhere, but I'm just asking your opinion as to whether you thought that would help, or you think the 2 street sweepers for our community is enough.
You know, just living here for since I moved here in '86. You always see trash and dirt and sand and stuff along the streetways. So I think any effort to double your efforts at it would help.
I think it would too.
Yeah.
And then the shopping carts, can't we give those back? I mean, if they're identifiable, like,
So all of them are identifiable and I make sure that I have a report with all of the names and numbers of their carts. I've contacted Walmart.
is it
They-
true that some don't want them back?
Yeah, I've contacted Walmart. They said it would take 3 weeks to 3 months to come get them. Target said they don't want them back at all. And they're right down the street from Target. Save-A-Lot says they'll come later on. You know, so the majority of what I'm getting back as feedback is that they don't want them, you know?
And I
The
think
only one that does is King Supers. They desperately want their carts back.
I've used a few of those carts that came back and they're all gunkety.
My
I
last-
know Karen's after us and I think we'll talk a little bit more about carts too, but Barb, I should say, has been taking them back to some of the stores. But I think code enforcement's got a central location that they're starting to focus on and taking it to. And we'll try to work with their Karen and their
My
program.
last question is about the needles. Do you feel you have all the proper equipment and the right kind of gloves and all of that stuff to deal with that? Because, you know, we don't want any of our employees to be.
Yeah, I don't want any of my crew to be stuck. So they are told, and I've trained them and taught them about the needles. If they don't feel comfortable picking them up, don't. I'll come get them. But in 4 years, I've never once been stuck. But with that being said, nobody ever touches the needle with their hands. That's not allowed. So I train them how to grab them with the grabbers, and everybody picks them up with the grabbers. I mean, you can pick up 5 or 6 with one time, but nobody touches the needle with their hands. It's not allowed.
Counselor Maestri?
Can I see the qualified census map up again?
Can you bring that PowerPoint up? So the area in tan, I want to say sandy tan color, is the QCT area.
Okay,
Yellow is the
so
city.
26th and Dillon isn't in it. Are we in violation of our grant funding because we're up you keep talking about cleaning the Fountain River and so forth? If it's supposed, the grant was to put out for the qualified census area,
Correct.
are we in violation of that?
I think as long as the majority of our cleanup, and I've been told by council that majority of our cleanup is in this QCT area. And we hire QCT folks for the most part, as long as we can get them, that we're meeting the intent of the grant.
How many tons of trash have we picked up so far?
Did they say 13?
Yeah, but I think as of today, it's been 16.
What's the total we've spent so far?
What's that?
Total spending so far?
Total spending? I don't have a count of that. I don't know where we're at with the total funds spent today.
Okay, I'd like to see that in an email or something.
Okay.
Counselor Martinez?
Yeah, I'm curious about, so on that map, it had future cleanups. I'm curious about how you're prioritizing or how you are deciding where to clean up.
It's mainly a lot of the more highly visible areas we try to concentrate on, try to get that visual out to the community that we're out there cleaning up, this cleanup, program. And that's kind of our, I want to say our priority, but that's kind of how we've been going at it so far. Just trying to show the community that we've been out hitting it hard.
I guess to advocate for my own district, Corona Avenue along the river is always filled with things.
We're always open for suggestions.
Great, thanks, Stephen. So a suggestion would be Corona Avenue along the river right there, the Arkansas River, the kayak course, the one-way road up. it has at least 3 abandoned cams on it right now. So that would be great. And then talking a little bit about, the big event, we've always, and I don't know if it's going to be you or Andrew that's planning the big event for Team Up to Clean Up in May. Is that you or Andrew?
That's Andrew.
Okay.
We'll work with him. I'm
Okay.
sure.
I'm just curious, like, where can we help with that? What's the status of that?
Yeah, and we've been trying to get together, Andrew and Karen and I, trying to get us all working, on the same page, because I know we're all doing cleanup efforts in different areas. And so we want to make sure we're utilizing, staff's time best. So I'll get with Andrew and we'll talk about that.
Great. If we can help with that, we're happy to.
Counselor Winter, did you have anything?
I do, and all I can see is the map right now.
I think they're fixing it up.
Thank you.
There you go.
So back on Dennis's comment about street cleaners, I know that we've only had 2 forever, and wondering how many of those are actually functioning right now. I mean, do they work?
That'd be a question for Andrew. I couldn't answer that one.
Oh, all right. Okay, I guess I'll ask Andrew. So, you showed the dump, that was illegal dumping with all the needles. That's obviously a Sharps container dump that was in with the rest of the things they were throwing out.
Yeah, and we get that a lot. I mean, a lot of times we'll find Sharps containers full. So we just put it into our bucket that, just we get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'll come across camps that do have Sharps containers already filled. So, or they'll put them in Pepsi bottles or, 2-liter bottles or whatever. But sometimes we do find a lot of bottles and Sharp containers that are already full.
Sure. The barriers that you were asking for, I don't understand why we don't have barriers. I mean, they're not that expensive. All you need are those big cement ones. And it's my understanding that the city was the one putting all those shopping carts together and locking them up to use as a barricade.
That's correct. Our
I mean,
kind of,
that's just
the shopping
astonishes me that you would waste city labor on that. I mean, didn't you have to do it every day because they would just cut that cable?
No, they didn't cut the cable. Once we locked them up and we locked them to the tree on one side and the storm drain on the other side, the guy that was coming in and breaking through it finally quit. I had gone across the street to the cement company. They said it's like $60 per cement barrier. I had talked to Mr. Hayes about it and he said, we'll see. So I just took it upon myself to go down and do the carts because nobody wanted their carts. I made sure.
Right, and you don't have a barrier. I mean, I'm sure you've lived here forever. I mean, it's been like that forever. That's been a dumping site since I can remember. So I don't know why it's never been barricaded. Doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, it had my shopping carts.
Well, bless you. I mean, really, God bless you. I mean, it's just so bizarre to me that we're not purchasing barriers. I mean, even the shopping cart, somebody could just drive right through it if they really, really wanted to.
And at that
That
time,
area, as you know, even had some makeshift actual houses in there that they made out of various things, and they even had fireplaces in them, and that went on forever.
Yep.
It's so
At
I
that time-
don't know. It's just nuts.
At that time, I was working with the homeless and going down and talking to them. And I had set up a site that, once a week, I'll come down and pick up your trash, make sure everything's bagged and, clean and orderly, and put the shopping carts there as well. Every Thursday I'd go down, I'd take out their trash, and then I'd go back and I'd get their carts and take them to King Soopers because King Soopers was the only one that wanted them really. So at that point, King Soopers was taking anybody's carts. So they just wanted carts. So I was working with the homeless down there like that, and it was working, it was working out pretty good. They were all willing to bag up their trash, bring it up to where I told them to, and then some of them started saying, well, can you come over here And I'm not a door-to-door trash collector. I'm a, this side only and one day only. It was working.
Yeah.
Did you have anything?
Why is the gate open on the other side of 47? Where we have all the new trash and everybody that moved over from 20, behind King Supers and Target, they moved over to behind Walmart. The gate is open. Why do we have a pipe gate? Why is it open?
that chain link fence, I don't know why that gate's open. I went down there and looked at it today. I don't know if it's a CDOT.
Well, that's the one that's there by Target. What about you go across Highway 47 and you take that cul-de-sac?
Oh,
And then there's that pipe gate that's open and it's just open and there's, I don't know, 50 people living down there causing trash and more trash and more trash. Like, why don't we just lock the gate, kick them out and lock the
I
gate?
agree. I don't know. We'll have to talk to Andrew. I think that's a stormwater gate. And it should be locked, should be shut. So,
Yeah, because we have a whole new
Yeah.
encampment
yeah.
as we try to get rid of the old account. And that's
Right.
exactly where they moved to. They were down there. I mean,
Whack-a-mole.
You go down there, they're pulling guns on you as you go by. They're doing all their little devil stuff down there with drugs and you see little kids down there in some of those encampments and disgusting. That we have the gate open for them to do that.
Well, maybe we can
Bring that
close,
up to him.
close that gate. Would there be a way to start getting some of these cleanups that you're doing posted on social media so the community can see your
Yeah.
what your progress and stuff? Because I think just visibly seeing it really, gives people a little bit ease on the hard work that you guys are.
Yeah. Work with
I think Lindsay has it on Facebook.
Yeah, just so not just us could see, but everybody could see.
I know Lindsay was doing some of that on our parks side, but maybe we'll get it on the main city side.
Yeah. And then have you ever looked into or heard of other cities passing ordinances on these big box stores with shopping carts that would make them put in the brakes so that they could not leave their areas? I know some stores already do it in Pueblo, but it would seem like it would sure heck save them a
I've
lot
seen
of
those
money
breaks, but I don't,
and save us a lot of time and cleanup if these, if we put some kind of stipulations on carts at big box stores not being able to leave their areas.
I see those breaks on them, but I've not done any research
Okay.
on it.
Yeah,
I've seen those brakes busted off of.
yeah, they might bust them, but maybe if there's some kind of deterrent, they won't take.
I would think if there was some sort of fine
Yeah.
or,
something.
Something to the store to say, this many carts
Right,
is this much money,
right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
That's why I'm keeping track of how many carts and who they're from.
yeah, some kind of accountability on the store's part too, and
Yeah.
that too. Maybe code enforcement has something to talk about that for us. And-
Stop them when they're taking groceries out. Why would they talk?
Well,
stop
you
them
know,
from
you wouldn't
taking-
be able to leave the premise of their
Oh, yeah. That's an
their
investment.
location. Yeah, but
You
it's,
know,
I mean, the amount of money that they're
Keep the homeless.
losing would seem like a win-win.
Stores are gonna say they're victims. I mean, they're stealing their cards.
Yeah,
I don't know how you
well, maybe we
turn it
can.
around and.
Yeah, exactly. Because they just break that off and that's why those wheels are messed up when they get them back.
I thank you again for coming. And I think to echo, because you are doing an amazing job. So if we can highlight it on social media, but I wonder too, if there's an opportunity to have people, because if you're going to take suggestions, if you can have like a form or something where people can like, hey, you should come clean up this area or something like that. So just an idea.
We take suggestions all the time, all in all the time, but we can do something on Facebook or see what happens with that.
Some of the suggestions I've got though already are for private property
That's typically,
and I can't do prep.
yeah. Yeah, we'd have to educate part of that. All right,
Okay, thank you guys so much.
thank you.
Next up, we have Karen Wilson with code enforcement.
So good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by congratulating everybody else on all of the efforts. All of the comments that have been made tonight have been very thoughtful and well thought out, and I do appreciate them all. This issue is a very difficult one that unfortunately none of us seem to have an answer to, but we're all trying to do our part with what our narrow view might be. So with that being said, code enforcement has fallen into the role of doing a lot of cleanup of camps along the river and in other areas of our city. Since 2017, both the police department and code enforcement have dedicated nearly 3,000 man hours to clean up. This is just a list of the years and how many man hours were spent. Each time that code enforcement has had to go do a cleanup, we have to have police escort with us when we do for safety reasons. None of the camps that were cleaned up were done so out of the blue. They were planned in advance. They were based on high complaint volume. And each of those camps was notified approximately 5 weeks prior to the cleanup. And then they were notified every week thereafter until the cleanup happened. And they were told the date it would happen. Here's a list of addresses, locations that we did for 2022. 26th and Dillon is a repeat area. Highway 47, I-25, Highway 50 bypass, all of those are the same areas over and over again. These are what have been done so far in 2023. This year, I'll get to that in a minute. This is a camp that we cleaned up underneath the Union Avenue Bridge. We received a lot of complaints about this area. It's right next door to the Union Depot. There was a lot of stuff happening here, a lot of domestic violence happening here, domestic disputes, just trash piling up. It was pretty bad. So we came in after notifying the occupants of this camp. That notification happened on 3 separate occasions a week prior to this cleanup. So we came in and we did a cleanup of this area. And here's the dangers with regard to some of the camps and why it can be so difficult is the fires. You can see the burn scar. And I realize this is a cement structure. However, that repeated heat and fire can damage this cement structure. It does damage to that wall, and this is a bridge. The environmental damage that happens frequently from this is tremendous. And up until this year, we have done a lot of try to do damage control on the back end. We have found these ginormous camps come in to try to do a cleanup, and that cleanup actually, while it takes a tremendous amount of manpower, equipment, and what have you, ends up being very superficial because we can't really dig in and get all of the cleanup that we need done. We've hauled away approximately over the lifetime of doing this, and since 2017, approximately 100 40-yard roll-off dumpsters. Those dumpsters have been donated to us from Waste Connections, the health department. They've also been funded by the city. Andrew Hayes at the Public Works Department has paid for several of those dumpsters for those cleanups. Not only that, they've dedicated employees and equipment to help us with those cleanups. So moving forward, we're trying to take a step back a little bit and treat this a little bit differently. Rather than going after these very large campsites where our cleanups are superficial, we are partnering with the police department's DICE team, who is dealing a lot with the crime that's happening with the homeless. And I'm dedicating our cleanup crew, at least 2 members of our cleanup crew, to go with the DICE team 1 day per week. In doing so, what they're doing is tackling those startup camps before they get entrenched and become a huge problem. So they're trying to get those taken care of and cleaned up before it becomes a huge problem. 1 day per week, we're also picking up shopping carts. We have so far created a list of store managers, retail managers. And I have an email list of them all. When I collect their carts, I email them and let them know they can come and pick them up. And we have a central location. Well, it's not really a central location, but we have a location where they can be picked up. At the time I did this, we'd picked up 96 carts. We are well over 100 carts at this point in time. We've had some stores come and pick up their carts and others have told us no, they won't come get them. So essentially what's happening with those shopping carts is they're ending up in our storm drains where they're clogging those storm drains and causing flooding. They are causing traffic hazards because they get left in the street. They're causing hazards for people who use sidewalks because they're left on the sidewalk. So we're trying to remedy that. We are actually in the process now of working on some ordinance language in regard to shopping carts and requiring the assistance of retailers to help with that. To date, and this is the next thing I'll discuss, I mean, code enforcement has not been given an increase in resources to deal with this issue in particular. Notoriously, our jobs were to handle code enforcement issues on private property. Any cleanup that we did as part of an enforcement action on private property where liens might get placed on properties or what have you. So the issue with all the extra cleanup, we're just having to figure out how to do and how to take care of because we don't have the extra resources to do. Again, the issue is a multifaceted issue. It requires cleanup, it requires police, it requires people, it requires equipment. And probably most of all, the most important component of that is someplace to send people. When we are running into those camps and we don't have anywhere to send them or tell them they can go, that creates yet another issue and a crisis issue where mental health professionals have to come in. And I do have to say, on all of the cleanups that we've done, when police initially start notifying those occupants, they have sent CIT teams out to have that initial consultation with people. There's been times when the health department has come out with them and have given vaccines or things like that may have been needed at that point in time. But so we've tried to do some different things. And again, this year, we're focusing less on the huge, large cleanup, but more of the smaller pop-up things that happen. And if we can tackle those in those neighborhoods a little bit more efficiently, that might end up helping that problem. And with that, that is all I have. I'll turn that over to you. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for code enforcement? Counselor Maestri?
They've destroyed your whole department, basically, because they've added so much work to your department that wasn't designed to handle that load. And I see when you're cleaning up under the Union Bridge, that's the qualified census tract area. So now we're overlapping services, and this is not anything against any of the departments. You guys have all been this has all been put onto your plate with the trash, and we've got officers that are dedicated to it, and yet we don't have officers to go out there and handle crimes in this community. And, you know, I would just like for somebody to take it by the horns, one group, or create a new department that handles it, because it's robbed everybody from their departments. You know, we have planting to do for the Parks and Rec. I mean, we have springtime, we have baskets, we have flower beds, we have all different sorts of things that need to be done. And I've said that back when the $1 million came, we should hire experts to come in and handle this, because we know that people are complaining, why hasn't code enforcement come and cleaned up my neighbor's house or done things with my neighbors? Or why are all the businesses full of weeds and trash and because you're busy over here cleaning this up. You know, one thing, when I was on vacation, I was going to communities where everything was manicured. And I was surprised because it was in California. I mean, all the businesses were manicured, not in every community. But everything was looking really nice. And so I know we can achieve that. Our budget's smaller than a lot of the, larger cities. But I would like to see you guys be alleviated from what you were hired for and have a department that specifically handles this. Even if there's transfer of employees into that department, but it's getting ridiculous. You guys are overwhelmed. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you for everything you do, though.
Counselor Flores?
Sorry, you have to.
I was scrolling through the internet the other day and there's a company called Landscape. You just type in Landscape. And they did a study of the dirtiest cities in the United States. And they had 150 on that list and Pueblo was not on it. And we, but Houston has the badge, I guess, for the dirtiest city in the United States. So I'm not trying to overlook our problems that we have here, but some of the issues these bigger cities have, they deal with a lot of environmental stuff. I mean, when we see people dumping shopping carts, that's minor to people that are dumping hazardous materials in barrels. And you're seeing that a lot of this throughout the United States in these big cities. And by the way, I don't think that neither you nor the people that we hired for this grant are overlapping one another. We could have everybody in every department have a portion of Pueblo and we still are not making that big of a dent. To me, it's a culture issue. I think we need people from the landfill. I think people literally cannot afford to go to the landfill. And a lot of them are just out of desperation, I guess, just not even worried about their trash anymore. I think that's an area that we need to, I hope we can have a work session with number one, looking at our contract at the landfill, two, bringing the people that run our landfill and being able to ask them, how can we reduce some of these fees in order to make it easier for our citizens to throw their trash away? It's a tough issue, but anyway, I didn't ask a question. I had to say.
Because we're talking about homeless camps, so they don't have the resources to go to the dump regardless.
Counselor
They come
Martinez?
to-
Thanks, Karen, for all you do. So I'm curious about how you're how you and the DICE team are either aware or prioritizing the startup camps. Like, how are you, if you're going out one day a week, how are those startup camps identified?
So a lot of those things come in by complaint. I know my office takes a lot of complaints about issues that are happening in one particular area. I usually, if it is in regard to a homeless camp or an issue like that, I usually refer that over to the DICE team and we work together on it. And if it's a chronic problem that's happening for several weeks at a time, then that's when we all come in and try to tackle that on a bigger level so that we can get that taken care of before it becomes entrenched and huge.
Yeah, I like the idea of preventing. I'm curious if then since they're startup camps, are they all like actively being lived in?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the ordinance language on shopping carts, do you want a work session? When will we be anticipating that ordinance coming before us?
We just met with the mayor's office this morning in regard to that. It needs to go to the law office for some review, and then we intend to have a stakeholder meeting before it comes to council for a work session.
Okay.
Any other questions? I actually saw this small camp thing going on. There was a camp across the street from my house that had been there for several weeks. with several people living in it, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then code enforcement came, maybe did a survey of it. I saw a gentleman out there looking at it, and then a windstorm came and took the camp and just blew it. It blew trash and belongings everywhere. And code enforcement came and did a nice job, and they cleaned it all up. And it could have been a huge problem, but you guys got there and were reactive before it became huge.
There are a couple of different issues at play. And if you have a camp that's on private property, then it's a different legal situation and a legal process that we have to follow, just like we would for any enforcement action on a private property. And those things are happening in conjunction with those on public areas as well.
Yeah, there was a gentleman earlier who mentioned, I wish that there was like a one-stop resource thing that people could give out for people experiencing homelessness. So I just triggered my mind. When you're going out to those camps, I know that PCC puts out like a multicolored thing that has a bunch of tabs on it. They call it the like Youth and Family Resource Guide. And it's updated every year. It's pretty good information. And they have the agency, the number, the website, and it's by tab. So it's like, for youth that need something, or for those that are like disabled. So I wonder if there are opportunities for the DICE team or code enforcement when you're going out to those camps once a week to just take a whole stack of them with you. And that could be that could help mitigate a lot of those conversations.
We do have a limited number of those. We don't always hand them out, but we like to have them so that we can at least tell them about that information. I can't tell you how many business cards I go through where we write the information on the back of a business card so that somebody can have that information.
I'll personally deliver you boxes.
Okay, great.
Counselor Martinez. PCC and Angie Shehorn has created a much smaller version, a smaller size so that they don't turn to trash. And it is directly the resources for those unhoused individuals. And she and I can reach out to her tomorrow as well and see if we can grab a handful of those. And then the police department have an even smaller resource that they distribute.
And also, if this is taking up, so much more time and resources out of your department budget, it might be time for us to revisit that and get you the funds that you need. If you're not only going to be you're going to be cleaning up encampments and not having the resources and the funding that you need from the city, it might be a good idea to revisit what that budget looks like. And it shows that you're making a dent. And so I would hate to not have that continue if it's about money and your budget. So if that's a question or.
Yeah, that's part of the police department's budget. And that is something that we review yearly with the mayor and Ms. Solano and finance as we prepare for the previous year's or the next year's budget. So we'll definitely take that into account and see where we need, if we need additional funds.
Great. Ms. Leonard, do you have any questions?
I do. Just to kind of bring up what Dennis was talking about earlier, as far as the landfill. Dennis, I'm sure that you recall having discussions with the landfill in the past, and it is just, it's a conversation that goes nowhere. It is not an ordinance in this city to cover your load on your way to the dump unless it's items that could possibly fly out. So, if somebody drives up there with a couch and it doesn't have a tarp on it, then they're charged more, substantially more. So I think that's why you see a lot of dumping just on your way out to the landfill that tend to be large items. Regina and I have talked quite a bit about this issue, and I really think that this should be contracted out, to professionals. I mean, when you're looking at $1 million for companies that are highly motivated to have that contract renewed every year, I just think that we would be a lot better off. you know, you kind of need somebody that's driving a little mule around every day to pick up items that aren't that large, and have them do large item pickups every day. I mean, this town is not that big, so I would like to really have a discussion about that. Maybe check with some other cities and see how much it's costing them with those contracts. That I guess that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I know we had requested to have the landfill bills come, and it's just keeps getting waste
Oh,
management.
it's just ridiculous. They just give it,
Down the
they
road.
just,
So when can we get them to come to council to present to us?
Madam President, the conversation this morning between the mayor and Mr. Hayes, which I happened to be in attendance, was the mayor asking him again for the update on when Waste Management was prepared to come to city council. So I'll forward that information right now, the request to the mayor and Andrew, and to confirm and get it scheduled.
Yeah, because I think every single one of us has
7 months.
requested it.
It's
so-
Waste Connections, isn't it? Not
Correct.
yeah, it's Waste Connections.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess I was gonna add to that whole Waste Connections. But that's a whole other rabbit hole. I did have a question for the chief, though.
Do you want him to present first? He's our next presenter. Is it
Oh,
really-
okay, I'll wait.
Okay. Any other questions for code enforcement?
And just so we know, everybody's aware, that's ARPA money. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's gonna have to be sustained through our budget somehow, somewhere, someday. So it's not there permanently. Millions gone, it's gone.
Okay. Well, next we Pueblo Police Department. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, and thank your crew and for all your hard work out there.
Okay, got a PowerPoint presentation we're pulling up. So. Okay, when in preparing for this presentation, I was asked to cover a few key areas. One of them being police encounters. It's important to know we haven't historically tracked our encounters with civilians based on their housed or unhoused status. However, a check for calls where the call notes indicate a homelessness as a status of the individual or possible status indicates that it accounts for about 2% of our call load. From January 1st of this year to March 14th of this year. The most common call types that are associated during that are unwanted parties, unwanted persons, burglary, squatting, entering vacant properties, trespass, loitering, disturbances, most commonly at convenience stores, theft from merchant, commonly at convenience stores, illegal burns and wildfires. Trying to combat some of these issues, which we call low-level crimes or homeless related crimes. We created the DICE team last year about this time, was when our first team was activated. So far this year, we created a second team. I think it was in September or October of last year. And so far this year, that team continues to work in that role of handling low-level crimes, in that kind of thing. Also targeting theft from merchant pretty heavily as well. In that time this year, since the beginning of this year, and I think this runs through the same date as the other slide I gave, March 15th, I believe it was. They've made over 1,200 contacts with civilians or with citizens. They've made 191 warrant arrests, written 189 citations, issued 341 trespass notices, did approximately 37 PR bonds, recovered so far this year almost $30,000 in stolen merchandise, handled 181 cop calls or community-oriented policing calls, seized small quantities of meth and fentanyl, recovered 2 stolen vehicles and 8 stolen firearms. Another program that our community has that's related to this group, as you heard earlier, there's some major indicators of persons that might become involved in homelessness or being unhoused. Mental health and drug abuse are two of those. The LEAD program was instituted in 2019 or 2018. That program is a pre-arrest diversion program where if law enforcement officers encounter persons that are in possession of 4 grams or less of an opioid-based substance, we can divert them rather than arrest them for that offense. Diversion occurs when we reach out to Crossroads, who is the manager of that program, the case management staff, and they will respond to the scene and take a warm handoff of that individual. They'll return them to their area, complete an intake form, try to find them resources in a harm reduction model. There is also the opportunity to refer people through a social referral program into the LEAD program where they can have the access to these same resources. So far, this program has intaked or brought into the program over 250 individuals. The individuals' demographics widely vary. There's 161 females in the program, 97 males. 225 of those individuals are identified as white, 10 as Black, 13 as Native American, 3 multiracial, and 7 declined. Of the white, 126 of those identify as Hispanic, or of the individuals, 126 of them identify as Hispanic, 72 non-Hispanic, 1 identified as both Hispanic and non-Hispanic, and 59 did not provide information. The law enforcement referrals, we've had 62 individuals that were referred by law enforcement into the program. It's pretty even split, 30 female, 32 male, 58 identified as white, 1 African-American, 2 Native American, 1 declined. 30 of those have been identified as Hispanic, 24 non-Hispanic, and 8 did not provide information. There's the chaplains program has been helpful in a variety of ways to our unhoused population. That program is a volunteer program that raises its own funds. They are not a part of the city or the police department and don't receive funds from the police department. The Chaplains Corps has conducted fundraising efforts for a variety of purposes. One of those purposes has been to purchase things like bus tickets in the past. And in 2019, I believe the city, through the mayor's office and council, gave $25,000 for that specific program. It's important to note that the Chaplains Corps was not created to run a bus ticket program. They are primarily there for the health and welfare of our employees and the citizens in the community in times of crisis. In 2022, as part of their fundraising efforts, they were able to give tickets to 28 travelers at a cost of about $4,400. Because of the limited funds they have access to, they do not entertain requests for services from walk-ins or requests that do not come from a department member or a police officer. The bus service provider here in Pueblo requires the chaplains to use their personal credit cards in order to purchase the tickets, which causes an additional hardship. And then what they'll do when they get the credit card, they use the credit card, they give a QR code to the individual to be able to get their bus ticket and go on about their way. Again, I stated earlier that early in 2016, the county commissioners gave a little bit of money. I don't remember what that amount was. The individual that was running the program at that time wasn't available to get that number. Again, in 2019, the mayor's office and city council gave the chaplains program $25,000. That was in September. They received the funds in January and expended that money by July of 2021. The chaplains, again, are not really set up to operate this program, but can if we need them to. One of the things I was asked about is what is important and what do we need as a police department. I think we need collaboration is what we need. We need to work cooperatively with our city departments that are working in these various areas. We need to work collaboratively with our nonprofit groups and our for-profit groups that are set up to help. There, you've heard from a number of those today. And I think the police department needs to be in a role to work with those organizations, because while homelessness may not be in and of itself a police problem, we are the ones that are responding to deal with it. And that's just the simple truth. We need to continue to build a strong working relationship with the Continuum of Care and other nonprofits, and we must be able to participate in discussions on this topic. There are a number of other cities that have worked cooperatively with their groups and their resources within their communities to address this, and had a positive impact on the unhoused and on the expectations of those who were unhoused and some of the behaviors that are tolerated within that community. I heard earlier that it seemed like you heard throughout the day today one side or the other. Either everybody that's unhoused is a problem, or that everybody that's unhoused is not a problem and everybody wants help and wants to get out of their situation. I've been doing this job for 30 years. Next January will be 30 years. So almost 29 and a half years. And one thing I've learned is that there's no such thing as always and never. What the reality of it is there are a large number of unhoused individuals that do want to get out of that lifestyle. They want help. They want resources that we have in this community or can bring into our community, and they would take advantage of those resources and become productive members. And I think we've heard from several people in that situation today. And I think the Parks Department talked about one of them that they have that works with them, that took advantage of these opportunities and improved their life. But it's naive to think that there isn't a group that wants nothing to do with these resources, that wants to live in this lifestyle, that for a variety of reasons, that may be due to drug addiction, that may be due to mental health. But we've got to be in a position where we can handle both groups. There's got to be consequences for the people that don't want to be part of that other group. And that's part of what we get paid to do. I think there's great ways for us to work together to limit the number of individuals that we're talking about to fall into that second group. But it's naive to think that second group doesn't exist. That's why we need to come together as a group, as a community, to work through these problems, to find the best practices that work for our community. Because what works in one community isn't necessarily going to work here in Pueblo. And if we work together, law enforcement, the providers, the city departments, we can make an impact, I think, in a positive direction on the homeless situation in our community. We talked a little bit about the STAR program. I don't want to belabor that too much, but the Familia program, as we're going to call it here. The data so far shows that approximately 3% of our calls for service could be diverted to a program like Familia and not require a law enforcement response. And I'll be honest with you, I know myself and my officers are all for this. Where we don't need to be, we shouldn't be. I got plenty of other work to do, trust me. So we're really looking forward to the potentiality of this program coming to our community. And I think it would be a great way of helping some of those individuals, maybe that fall into that second group, get the attention and the care that they need, like Health Solutions was talking about earlier. And that's my presentation.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? Councilor Atencio?
Well said, Chief. Way to go. That $25,000 for that program, my thinking is, wouldn't that be better in a place like Rescue Mission?
It could be. I don't know if they would be set up to run it. I think clearly they would have the clientele, I think, maybe, and probably even better access to them than we would.
Probably, yeah. Because from what I hear, you're not really set up. The chaplain's thing isn't set up to do the program.
It's not. I mean, they certainly, and I don't want to give you the impression that they aren't willing to be helpful, but that's not what their program was set up to do.
Yeah, precisely. That's what I heard. We might think about that.
Counselor Flores.
I wanted, since we're being recorded, I wanted to be clear that the 25,000 was really for individuals that were stranded here or that they called mom and dad and they wanted them home. The 25,000 was never used to send the problem off.
That's 100% correct.
Like some communities are doing. I just wanted to be clear that that was not what the money was intended.
And to even be clear, we would actually call the family back where they were from and make sure that they had or wanted to be able to help that person.
Counselor Winter.
And thank you for helping me to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I think this problem has become so huge that it's really affecting the quality of life for law-abiding citizens. And you know, you mentioned high priority calls. I know that's probably something like murder, and then and then gets a little less severe than that. But I mean, you know, I mean, how many of your murders this year were gang related?
I don't have that data in front of me right now. So far, we've only had 4 murders this year. It suffices to say some of them were. I just couldn't tell you the number off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. I think what citizens are really frustrated with is where does the criminal rights end and their rights begin? And I think that law-abiding citizens are really fed up with spending a lot of tax dollars on all of this, and it's just not working. So it's just, to me, it seems like these calls should be almost high priority, because it's an issue of quality of life, and that's the problem we have here. I also had a question. Did somebody say something? It's just dead quiet there.
Well, I didn't hear a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I had a question. This actually is a question. So I have heard several times that in this homeless camp that's on the Fountain, whenever certain vehicles have their hood up, that drugs are for sale. I mean, have you heard this? And if it's true, why isn't that being addressed?
I haven't heard that, to be honest with you. That's news to me. But the reality of the situation, ma'am, is we handle 8 calls for service per hour throughout the day, and we prioritize those calls based on what is going on at the time. You mentioned it earlier. It starts at murder and it goes down from there. You know, the reality of it is we are forced into a position due to the nature of what it is we do, that we have to handle calls based on priority. And the number one priority is immediate harm to an individual. The secondary priority would be harm that is ongoing currently, in progress, to property. And then it goes down from there. Drug trafficking is certainly something that we spend a significant amount of our time investigating. We have 3 officers right now assigned to the DEA task force. We have 3 officers, I think it is right now, in narcotics that work towards those efforts. But we have to prioritize what it is we do and make sure that we are providing the best level of service. If we're diverting from an in-progress assault, in progress stabbing, shooting, whatever, or an in-progress property damage to investigate whether somebody's selling narcotics on the Fountain River, I think that would be a poor use of our judgment and a poor use of our resources. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be addressed, but it's got to be addressed in a priority in which it fits into our schema and how we respond.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying the citizens, as far as your law-abiding citizens and all of this frustration that's coming forth, that's a really high priority issue to them. And
I agree. Yeah. And we've dedicated 4 officers to handling those calls. in recognition of that importance. I know it's important to the mayor. I know it's important to council. So we've dedicated officers to trying to address those. But again, it's 4 officers and you know, there's a limit to our spread and how we can be in a variety of locations at the same time dealing with these issues.
All right, thanks.
Counselor Atencio?
Yeah, the reality is that the average citizen is never going to have encounters with crime. You serve a small population of people who are the deviant ones, if that's what you want to call them. But the average person will never get burglarized, will never get shot, will never get murdered. If we continue trying to scare the public with all this big crime type thing, that's exactly what they're going to be. Because you don't deal with, I mean, it's not what most people are led to believe. I mean, you got your hands full, but it's not the big thing that everybody's trying to scare everybody about.
I completely disagree with that. I think that my number one call and complaint is of the crime and the crime issues in Pueblo. I mean, it is happening now to everyday citizens. Women are walking into Sam's Club and getting mugged and getting their purses ripped off of them. 2 times last week when I was there, that happened. So it's happening to every district. It's crime doesn't discriminate. It is a big thing and the community is worried about it. And the 7 of us can't sit up here and act like it's not.
Keep scaring.
Well, we don't need to scare them. It's all over the news. You go outside and you see it. I mean, it's everywhere.
May I?
Like here.
You could go, Counselor Winter.
Oh, yeah, I just to kind of back what you're saying there. I mean, I've had several things stolen from my yard. And you just don't even call the police or even file a report because it's just not worthwhile. And that's what I'm talking about as far as quality of life. And that's what this big uproar is all about. I mean, if all this trash is blowing up from the homeless camps all the time, and you're trying to open your store to make a living, and these, you know, some dudes have passed out in front of your door, and then people can just walk in the store and get whatever they want and walk out, and there's just no penalty for that either. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, where you know, it's almost like your law-abiding citizen, it should be a higher priority. I mean, they're the ones paying the taxes. And I know that you have that your force is short, but that's just how citizens are feeling, is what I'm telling you. They're like thinking, well, to heck with what's going on with the gangs. What about the law-abiding citizens? I mean, the gangs really aren't affecting my life. It's these guys that, you know, sleep on my furniture on my porch and that type of thing.
Anybody else? Councilor Maestri, did you have something?
And the feral cats. Then throw feral cats on top of everything.
Thank you, Chief. I did want to ask if staff can have the LEAD program come and present. I got a chance to go and visit them, and it's really cool and really informational on what they're doing over there. And
Miss Seifvogel from the league program is in attendance, just so you know.
yeah, if we can have them come and present at a work session, that would be great. And then, Chief, when you talk about other communities working with the continuum of care, what do you need from us to be able to do that? Because like you said, your guys are, you know, first responders, you're right there, you're seeing it, and you should have a seat at the table. So what can we do? I mean, this whole meeting was supposed to be about collaboration and what the city can do to help with the homeless issues.
What can council do to help with the collaboration? I don't know the right answer to that, to be honest with you. I think there's a couple things we could probably do on our end, and we can reach out to the continuum of care and see about getting a seat at the table with the various stakeholders, whether that's mental health, drug abuse, the rescue mission. I think it's important for us all to sit down and kind of figure out what it is we want to see moving forward. I think the mayor's office and the council could help us by giving direction on how we want to go. And I think that might help us work together in a way that suits what both offices want to see in our community. But I think it's a way for us to start focusing. I heard it mentioned a couple times and a duplication of effort. I think it's important that we try to limit that and try to spread our resources a little bit further. And I'm speaking from a point, I'm just a chief of police. I'm not going to pretend to understand mental health and drug addiction treatment and all these various areas. But what I know I've seen while I was with the International Association of Chiefs of Police was that this does work in other communities to reduce their unhoused population. And it takes everybody working together to make that happen.
It's almost like we should have some kind of a task force created and, invite our partners and the city and the police, the continuum of care to come together and really start chipping away and find a solution and not reinventing the wheel, mocking what other cities are doing. I think that's something that we're not doing right now as a city, and it's something that needs to be done.
Madam President, Tia Miller's still in the audience, and she facilitates a monthly continuum of care with the collaborators in the city. I think there's probably 40 or so that attend monthly. I don't know if Tia has anything other than to extend an invitation or to schedule a stakeholders, meeting. I think she'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think 40 is a little bit too large, maybe something a little bit smaller and whatever you guys think. But I think when, I said I went to one of the community of housing and homelessness meeting, the Zooms, and it was a lot to follow. And there was just so many people on and so much going on that I didn't really feel like anything got accomplished after, the first couple meetings. And so if we could narrow that down and then maybe grow it, but I think it's hard to get everybody's voices heard and concerns and get direction on, what the big parties at the table, like the city, can do to help the nonprofit world, can do to help the police department, and to really start making some progress and not, oh yeah, we have a meeting monthly. Let's see what we can get from that. And, really let's get a strategic plan on what we're going to do. I mean, that's what this meeting was supposed to be about. We've heard from the community tonight. We've heard from people, feet on the ground. And so I'd really like to see that moving forward on what we can do. And so if the mayor's office would put a schedule, a meeting, and let's okay, great.
Ms. Solano, because we've spent about, how much have we spent just giving to service, related issues for ARPA? Of the ARPA funds?
The
Just to service
spreadsheet is
related.
available, and I can sort it pretty readily
Yeah.
by the scope of award
Mhm.
and have that information for you electronically or by Monday,
Yeah.
so that we have accurate figures instead of, anytime I've said if I have to guess, that's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I think we should be better fiscal stewards of the money and stop duplicating funds so that the resources can go further. You give to 8 food banks, you got 8 food administration fees. That really cuts back on the amount of money that could be used towards food. And it just continues on with every single type of service. And so, I'd like to see our money go further. And maybe the city's part is really investing in the housing and getting the housing up, and all of the nonprofits that want to come to the table to help the community. That's what they set themselves up for, should help pick up the other resources. And we spend our money on housing, because doesn't matter how many resources we have in the end, if we don't have any houses or any housing to provide, then we're nothing. But we can't do it all. They come here tonight. They want to criticize us. We're not doing enough. We're heartless if we don't want to do something. But nobody came with $1 in their pocket to the table. They're all waiting for us to hand out dollars.
Okay, anything else? Anybody?
Yeah,
else?
I just have one thing. So being a part and collaborating with other departments, as you say, that might help you. I still don't think this is addressing why this came to the table tonight, which is what I said before, you know, business owners having to deal with this all the time. And we always come back to the fuzzy, warm feeling conversation of rehab and all these wonderful sources we have, when we're still not talking about what do we do about the immediate problem that law-abiding citizens are dealing with every day.
Yeah, I mean, do you have that solution, Counselor Winter?
No, but I'm just saying that, you know, we can talk in circles over and over and over, but if there's no place to put these people, there again, I mean, if they need mental health help, which most of them do, we need more beds there. It's just, it always comes back to, again, what's really nice to talk about, which is rehab and housing, but it's still not addressing what I mentioned before. And I guess we're just going to keep tolerating it because you get what you tolerate. That's all I have to say.
Plan. Anybody got a plan? Nope.
Well, like I said before, I think it should be a higher priority call. I mean, we have a lot of quality of life issues in this city.
Just a quick, so I hear everyone asking about a plan. To bring it back to homelessness and housing, the Commission on Housing and Homelessness is now going to be facilitated by a third-party neutral facilitator because we lost the facilitator. And really, there's going to be a lot of priorities on action. So not just a plan, but then implementing that plan. And so that's how we're going to be moving forward with very smart, measurable, attainable, realistic targets in mind, especially when the Biden and Harris administration has put out this goal of reducing homelessness by 25%. So in their whole plan, they've outlined strategies. Locally, the coalition has thought of several activities, but it's now going to at least have a facilitator and a leader to not only get them to write a plan and stick to a plan, but then also implement that plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Larry.
It's about time.
So that's at least in terms of the Commission on Housing and Homelessness, and it's going to be broken up by housing and homelessness.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I conclude this work session at 9:26. Thank you for everybody's participation tonight.